You are not singing for this intro. You may be dressed like Lucy Gray, but you do not have Rachel Zegler's voice.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Oh, hi. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the recap of the 10th annual Hunger Games. If you ever thought maybe Snow was a good person at some point, this book proves you wrong so many times. And trust me, I cannot wait to rant about this man for a few hours. But real fast, before we get to that, if you do like these recap videos and you want to support this channel, go ahead, like this video. I think there's a hype feature if that's still a thing. I really don't know what's going on with that. But you can also subscribe, I know that for sure, and leave a comment of maybe some suggestions for future recaps. Those are always appreciated. And yes, I will be doing Sunrise on the Reaping at some point. It will most likely be after the movie, so I have the comparisons I can make there, okay? But anyways, with all that out of the way, I think it is time to send you over to a recap, Natalie. Welcome to the recap of A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Or as I like to call it sometimes, A Ballad of Songbirds and Rattlesnakes. Thank you, Hadestown. Or sometimes when I'm really confused, I call this book Sunrise on the Reaping. This isn't Sunrise on the Reaping. This is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, like I said in the beginning. If you just read the main 3 books or just watched the main 4 movies and you said, I'm good, that's enough Hunger Games for me, this is the recap for you. This is me going over everything that happens in the book and kind of in the movie of The Ballad of Songbirds and Rattlesnakes, which is the story of Mr. Coriolanus Snow. I'm gonna say that name wrong so many times during this recap, so please forgive me, but I can't say it well. I think it's my southern accent, I don't know. Send help. We open this book with Corio getting ready on the morning of the 10th annual Hunger Games. Now, the Hunger Games aren't like they are when we see them when we first catch up with Katniss during the 74th Hunger Games. They're still figuring stuff out. They're still testing out new things, and this year they decided they should test out having Academy students, aka high school students from the Capitol, be the tribute's mentors. Isn't that fun? They didn't think to use the university students that are actual adults. No, they're gonna make the mentors also high schoolers for the other high schoolers. That's gonna work out so well. But the same people who made this decision are the same ones throwing children into the arena, so I really don't think there's any point in arguing with them about that. Anyways, Cory over here is starving because his family is actually poor right now. See, his dad is dead and his mom is dead, and they live with their grandmother that we call Grandmam. The we I'm talking about is Tigress, who is currently out getting his shirt repaired. Well, actually his dad's shirt, because again, they're poor. They don't have money to spend on new shirts right now. They're just lucky to be able to stay in the apartment they currently have, and they're barely scraping by with the paycheck she's getting. Now yes, the Snows did used to be a very rich family, but a lot, and I mean a lot, of their assets were in District 13, and when District 13 kind of turned against the Capitol, they lost their entire fortune right there. They put all their eggs in one basket, and that basket blew up. Literally. Nukes were involved. While Cory over here is anxiously waiting for Tigress to get back with his shirt, and he's really worried about where Tigress is because she's already supposed to be here right now, Grandmam starts singing the national anthem like she does every morning because Grandmam, she loves her country. This gets Corio thinking about the war and when he learned this anthem with Tigress during that time, and also about the times before the war when the Capitol would just throw away food, but they don't do that now because food is still scarce even in the Capitol for a lot of people. People in the Capitol right now frown on throwing away food. Now we know that changes in the not so far away future for them, but right now they're decent human beings. Well, decent human beings who throw the Hunger Games, but hey, they're not wasting food. An eco-queen. During this whole spiral that he's currently having about the anthem, food, throwing away food, the Hunger Games, all that stuff, he gets back to thinking about the shirt because he has an obsessive personality. You don't say. Anyways, he does think about how that obsessive personality might be his undoing one day, which, that's funny. Because we all know how this story ends. While he's waiting, he decides to boil some cabbage to get some sort of food in his body right now so it stops growling. But while he's fixing that up, Tigress returns with the shirt. She got it bleached, she added new buttons, it looks as good as new, and he is so happy. He is thrilled, over the moon with happiness right now. He thanks her for the shirt, he's hugging her, and then he says the famous catchphrase, "Snow lands on top." Now, I love Suzanne Collins so much. I do so much. I love these stories so much. But This family, they constantly use this catchphrase, "Snow lands on top," all throughout this book, is something that cracks me up a little bit because it feels very YA in a way. It doesn't feel real. It reminds me that these are fictional characters. This isn't something normal people would say. But to defend her, the capital is quite campy in general, so maybe this is something we could believe that they would say. I mean, imagine Effie saying that. We would all believe it if she said it. Like, she would say it with the most sincerity, and we'd be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So I guess she gets away with it, but trust me, I know it's a little silly, but also remember these are YA books, and sometimes Suzanne Collins has to be not so subtle with metaphors because when she is subtle with them, they go right over people's heads. Just whoosh. He eventually gets to asking her what she's going to be up today, and she's going to be at her boss's house, Fabricosia. Just, I'm telling you right now, I'm not gonna pronounce half of these capital names correctly. I tried so hard to figure them all out, but it's one thing that goes in one ear and out the other, and I'm trying my best, okay? Please give me some grace on these names. Some of them are kind of insane, okay? Thank you. Thank you. But anyways, Tigress is gonna be at her boss's house, Fabulosa. And they're gonna kind of celebrate the Hunger Games, but not really. Because even though it's a technical holiday for everybody, nobody really celebrates it because it is a little grotesque, a little too violent for them. Not everybody is behind the Hunger Games quite yet. I mean, children murdering each other, is that really entertainment? He then goes off, gets changed, comes back down, and Tigress goes, "Coriolanus Snow, future president of Panem, I salute you." And I mean, she's not wrong, but everybody in this family, I mean, just these two, that's the only two people that are alive that are his family. Sorry to rub that in, Mr. Snow. Anyways, they all just fully believe that he will be president one day, and I guess they kind of manifested it. Is that what we're saying nowadays? Grandmam re-enters the scene at this point with a fresh cut red rose for Snow to wear today. I say red rose with such a point because in the movie, it's all white roses, but that's to tie into the themes that they had in the other movies. The prequels get into a weird thing where Suzanne is writing them to follow the book lore and some stuff like that, and the movies have to follow movie lore. So there's just these weird offshoots that make no sense, but it makes sense in the big picture. Where'd she get this rose? Well, she has a rose garden on the roof. It's one of the few luxuries they still have. Yes, an entire rose garden on the roof. He reaches out to grab this rose, and one of the thorns prick him and make him start to bleed, and he's so concerned about his brand new, well, newly repaired shirt that he honestly gets mad at Grandmam for getting him this rose that still has thorns on it, even though he's the one who reached out to grab the rose. Just look where you're grabbing, buddy. You can see the thorns. They're not that small. He has to remind himself not to lash out at his grandmother because he poked himself with a rose. I mean, he's really already showing off some of his best traits right now, but they do stop the bleeding. They get all the thorns taken off this rose, and then they pin it to his lovely outfit. Now, he's off to the academy, where the best of the best, or the richest of the richest, go to school. He's still going there because his family has a long history of being students there. And most people in the capital still think he's rich. They've hidden their, loss of fortune very well. They pretend that District 13 didn't actually have all their assets and they spread it out other places because they would be stupid not to. As he walks there, he's just thinking about how there's only one more thing that stands in between him and getting into the Capital University that you have to pay a lot of money for. And that is being the mentor of a winning tribute in the Hunger Games, because with his current academic record, he would get a very nice monetary prize. Now, if you just watched the movie and never actually read the book, you may be like, oh, this is the Plinth Prize, but no, that actually doesn't come up for a while here. It does exist in this book, it's just gonna take us, most of the book to get there. The movie just decided that was far easier to follow, and honestly, they weren't wrong. There's so many different rewards that get offered up throughout this book. I'm like, all right. But the Plinth Prize, how it comes about in this book, does make sense. But to streamline it for a movie to make things a little less complicated for a movie audience, not saying movie audience are dumb, you just have to compact a lot of stuff into a much shorter amount of time. Like I said earlier, this is the first time that the Capital Academy students will be mentors in the Hunger Games, and the reason they're doing this is to try to make the Hunger Games more exciting, more fun to watch for the people of Panem. Because honestly, if they don't get more people interested, this could be the final years of the Hunger Games, and I mean, what a shame that would be. He's made it to school by now and currently is heading to the front of the auditorium to find in a way, his mentor, called Satyria. She's one of the teachers here. Coriolanus is her aide and just helps her out with a bunch of different stuff. Satyria compliments his amazing new shirt. He acts like it's brand new, of course, and knows he has to pay a compliment back to her, and acts like her dress is brand new, even though he's seen it every year they've had the reaping. Then they see Miss Sickle coming towards them with her aide, Sejanus Plinth. And he's carrying an ornamental shield that Miss Sickle always insists on holding in group photos that she got for running the bombing safety drills during the war at the academy. Not the war at the academy, but the safety drills at the academy. There wasn't like a single war at the academy, even though that would have been fun. Corio, though, he isn't focused on this giant shield that this professor insists on holding all the time in group photos, which I just find a little bit funny, and I love that that's a detail in here. But anyways, he's focused on Sejanus, because Sejanus is wearing a nice new tux and just smells of money right now, and he can't frickin' stand that, because Sejanus' family is from District 2. This kid is District, and his daddy bought their way into the capital, and Snow just can't stand that. And it really, really hurts because the only reason they got all their money from District 2, Mr. Sturbo Plimth over here, is because of what happened in District 13. Corio's losses were Sejanus Plinth's gains. Sejanus, though, doesn't know that Corio is poor, or that basically their family coming into power means that Corio fell from power. He's just like, existing. And ironically enough, even though Snow hates this kid so much, everybody thinks they're actually friends because instead of outwardly mocking him and belittling him all the time, he just ignores him, which is a big step up from the rest of the Capital students because nobody likes the district kid. This little group is having a conversation over here, and eventually it leads to Sejanus talking about how he'll be moving closer to the school soon with his family because a bunch of places in the Corso will be going up for sale soon because the residents won't be able to afford the new taxes. See, currently, there aren't property taxes in Panem, but there's still a lot of rubble from the war around the streets, and the capital needs more money to be able to restore itself to its previous greatness. And Corio over here instantly starts panicking because the only reason they're still in this penthouse is because they don't really have to pay anything on it. And he doesn't really understand why they would do this to the capital because that's something they only do to the districts. Yeah, they tax the districts more than the capital. Sejanus ends up having to be the one to break it to him that this is a new law. Now, obviously, he's covering his tracks as best as he can and is doing his best not to look too anxious about this, but on the inside, he's on the verge of a panic attack at this point, I would say. Because if they can't come up with the money to pay these taxes somehow, then they will have to move out of their apartment and move into basically the slums of the capital, and they will lose all credibility they had because the only way to get credibility in the capital is to be rich, and be rich for a long time, for the most part. Also, there is a concern that this disgrace may just straight up kill Grandmam, and that would be unfortunate. You're gonna learn more about Grandmam later, and I really don't like Grandmam. She has a fun name, though. In Snow's mind, this is so bad that they would just have to move to, I said the slums earlier, but it would still be a nice apartment. It would be perfectly fine. It would just be in like a middle class, lower class area, and that would be fine, right? But no, you think this kid was about to get shot from a firing squad because he thinks that it might just be nicer to throw his grandmother out of a window than to let her move into one of those apartments. Because at least that would be quick. I can't. I cannot. What do we think of my monocle hair? Now let's just think about how he views the districts if he views a normal, everyday citizen of the capital this poorly. Yeah. Shortly after this, they end this conversation, get to their seats, and then Dean Casca Highbottom comes out, the man that is credited with the creation of the Hunger Games, and will be overseeing the mentor program. Now, Mr. Highbottom over here is known to use a lot of morphling and also hates Coriolanus. Actually, he just really hates any Snow. He gives a quick little speech and quickly gets to assigning the tributes to their mentors. Obviously, Corio wants a tribute from one or two. Already, those are the front runner in the games because 1 and 2 are better taken care of by the Capitol. But if he can't get a tribute from there, he would rather get a tribute from 11, because with all the work they do outside and the fact that they do handle a lot of food, they tend to have a stronger build as well. Since he is a top student in the Capitol, he thinks he should be rewarded with one of those tributes, obviously. But really, he's just praying that he doesn't get somebody from a poorer district, especially a girl from District 12. We start off with a District 1 girl going to a student called Livia Cardew. He just keeps going from district to district, calling the boy name, then the girl name, assigning them to a student, and eventually he gets to District 11, and Snow's name has still not been called, but you know, there's still hope. He's calling the boy name for 11. Surely the boy from 11 will go to him because he's a stellar student. But see, the boy from District 11, Reaper, actually goes to Clemencia Dovecote. To say Snow is outraged is an understatement, but he doesn't show any of that. He just is already plotting his revenge on Dean Highbottom. He cannot believe he would do this, disrespect him in this way. He is fuming. And just to rub salt in the wound, at this point, Dean Highbottom announces that the girl from District 12 belongs to Snow. Now let's just take a quick note of that word belong being used right there, because Snow takes that word and runs with it. This girl from District 12 that he doesn't know who it will be yet. I know I said Reaper's name earlier, but they actually don't know the names yet. I'm sorry, that was my mistake. Yeah, they don't know who it's gonna be yet, but that girl from District 12 belongs to him. In his brain. If you only watched the movie and you came out of there thinking he actually cared about Lucy Gray for a bit, yeah, in his own twisted up brain, maybe he did, but no, it was a possessive thing from the start. He honestly sees her as an object, and I truly believe he sees her as an object for most, if not all of this book. She's a means to an end. Now, even though Snow right now is feeling furious and hopeless, and would really like to punch Dean Highbottom if he had the opportunity, he knows he has to act like everything is fine and that he wasn't just horribly disrespected in front of all his peers and their parents. So he turns around to congratulate Sejanus on getting the pick of the litter, a boy from District 2. Snow has to ask him why he doesn't seem happy, and Sejanus has to go, did you forget I'm part of that litter? Sejanus grew up in District 2 for a bit. He was still very young, but he remembers it. He knows very well that right now he could be in that reaping himself. And all Snow can think is that this privilege of getting the District 2 boy has been wasted on Sejanus. No empathy, no sympathy, none of that. Why would he have it? It's gonna be a long recap for me, y'all. Now, I love the Hunger Games. Trust me, I love the Hunger Games, but man, this boy ticks me off. He ticks me off so bad. He grinds every one of my gears, every single one of them. I cannot, I repeat, I cannot stand him. And this is the reason that reading this book for the recap is the second time I have ever touched that book. If you know me, I reread the main Hunger Games series like once a year. Normally Sunrise on the Reaping will get added to that list, but I cannot stand being in this man's head. I love it. It's so well written, but it's so well written for a bad guy that I can only handle so much, okay? That's out of the way. I feel relieved. Anyways, everybody settles back down, including myself, because the reaping is about to start airing in the building they're in, all over Pedem. Yeah, words? Anyways, the reaping airs from the East Coast to the West Coast, so we're starting in District 12, which is in like the Virginia, Tennessee, Appalachian Mountain area. Probably more in District West Virginia. Probably more in West Virginia because of the coal mining, stuff like that, but we're in the Appalachian Mountains, which is kind of the area I grew up in, and I love that area so much, and I have such a soft spot for this series, partly because of that, I think, because I miss living in that area every single day. It is so pretty up there. If you live up there, please appreciate the beauty. It's gorgeous. So gorgeous. Anyways, this is really convenient for all of us because we're starting in District 12, the only district we care about. Not really, I mean, kind of. They play the anthem of Panem at the start, then the current president comes out, gives a little speech on the reason that they have the reaping, the Hunger Games, yada yada yada. And now they are taken over to the districts live from District 12. We get straight into the action. Mayor Lip is reaching into a burlap bag to pick out the name of the female tribute. He picks out a little card, brings it out, and reads Lucy Gray Baird. The camera finds her in the crowd, and she is wearing a dress made out of rainbows. That is now raggedy, but was clearly once very fancy. Lucy Gray over here doesn't head straight for the stage. She takes her time weaving through the crowd, and she stops by this one girl and seems to put something down this girl's dress, and then this girl falls to the ground and starts screaming. The mayor, up on stage, begins shouting at the peacekeepers, and everybody in the Capitol is now very intrigued. And Choreo starts to feel a little bit hopeful because their assignment isn't to technically have the winning tribute, it's just to make the games more entertaining, and what is Lucy Gray already doing? Meanwhile, the mayor of District 12 is running down the stairs to this girl that fell on the ground called Mayfair that he is addressing as his daughter. The camera is still focused on the girl that is on the ground, just trying to get something out of her dress, obviously, so we see the little iridescent green snake sliver out. Mayfair calms down rather quickly once the snake is out of her dress, but it is, pretty obvious to everybody that she has wet herself and she is clearly embarrassed. The mayor helps his daughter up and then gives Lucy Gray a murderous look, marches up on stage, and slaps her so hard she falls to the ground. It gets so bad, peacekeepers have to intervene to break this up. They drag the mayor all the way back into the Justice Hall, bringing the whole thing to a standstill right now. Lucy Gray currently is the only thing of interest on the screen, so the camera zooms in on her. Coriolanus is currently wondering if his tribute is completely sane because she's wearing a dress of rainbows, just put a snake down somebody's dress and just got slapped in the face and seems relatively okay. A little teary-eyed, a little lip tremble, but honestly, after getting slapped in the face that hard, kudos to her. She also has a full face of makeup, which is very odd because even in the Capitol, most people don't have access to all of that quite yet. During all this, Sejanus quietly, kind of to himself, says, "They rigged it. Her name wasn't on that slip." They don't have much time to think about this because this is when somebody from the crowd starts singing. And I hate having to speak these lyrics, but I also don't want to sing on the internet, and I also don't want to get this video demonetized. So we hear the lyrics of, "You can't take my past, you can't take my history. You can take my paw, but his name's a mystery." Lucy Gray gets a little smile on her face, grabs the mic that is on the stage, and starts singing her heart out. I'll be the first to say, I listen to the soundtrack from this movie all the time because Rachel Zegler's voice is insane. Oh my word, she is so talented. If for some reason you haven't watched the movie, at least go listen to her sing these songs because, she's so freaking good. She's so good. While Choreo is watching her sing, he doesn't find her so disconcerting anymore. He finds her kind of entertaining and even attractive, and of course you do, it's Rachel Zegler. I mean, look at her. Stunning. Before the peacekeepers can drag her away from the mic, and they're doing it rather nicely, honestly, she says, "My friends call me Lucy Gray, I hope you will too." The whole room that Choreo is in after this breaks out into people chattering about who is this girl and who was lucky enough to get her as their tribute. People are turning to him, giving him thumbs up. Other people are giving him a resentful look because they wanted entertainment for these games, and entertainment just fell right into his lap. He currently has the star of the Hunger Games, and he can't help thinking to himself, Snow lands on top. They finally get the mayor back up on stage. He picks the male tribute, which is a one Jessup Diggs. This whole scene in District 12 now ends with Lucy Gray giving a little bow before she leaves, which we all know turns into the Katniss Everdeen bow in the movies, which, I love it. I love it, and I can't wait to see where they put it in Sunrise on the Reaping, and it better be Haymitch bowing after that whole cart scene. All right, chariot scene. After this, it's really hard for Snow to pay attention to any of the rest of the Reaping, and really, he doesn't. He's just thinking about Lucy Gray and how this might just be his golden ticket to get to the university and save his apartment. But he does his best to pretend like he's interested in everything that's going on. Eventually, everything concludes in this room, and they head off to lunch, and he's just thinking about the food because, well, he's poor. Now, being poor, perfectly fine, but we're gonna make fun of Snow for being poor because he's President Snow, and, well, he deserves it. But, going to get food casually leads into him thinking about how desperate they were for food during the war, all that fun stuff, and then he remembers the time he saw his neighbor saw off a maid's leg that was dead on the street, so, they could eat it. His neighbor is a cannibal, and their daughter goes to this school, so it's hard for him to really look at her without thinking of that. We also get a little backstory right now on how they would get some food from Pluribus Bell that ran the nightclub. His father was a patron there quite a lot growing up, it sounds like. And the nightclub, for some reason, just got random stock of extra food, so they had a bunch of lima beans from this nightclub, like so many lima beans to the point where Snow will not eat them to this day, because he had so many during that time. But anyways, back to the present day and the present lunch. Now, he doesn't skip the food that is offered by the school, unlike in the movie where he's like, no, I ate at home. No, Snow here, he eats pretty well, like enough for a growing teenage boy, but he doesn't overfill his plate to look like he really needs food. You know, he finds a good balance like he always does. And again, it would be rude for him to take too much food because nobody likes waste in the capital right now. Again, that's gonna change very soon, but right now, they don't like it. While he's getting a modest piece of pie, you know, just to blend in, look normal, Dean Highbottom comes over and puts a giant piece of pie in front of his face, and he says, "For a growing boy," also hints at knowing that Snow is poor. He also makes it clear that he will basically do anything to guarantee that Snow doesn't get any sort of monetary prize to go to the university. Corio over here is confused. He doesn't know why this man hates him so much. He's thinking maybe it's because he did call Dean Highbottom Dean High as a kite bottom, but you know, besides that, there's no reason for him to hate him this much. He doesn't understand this rivalry that seems very one-sided to him. This conversation makes him even more anxious about getting this scholarship, because if he doesn't get this, if he doesn't get the money to go to the university, then he's gonna have to become a peacekeeper, and he will be written off, forgotten, basically dead in the eyes of the capital. But let's not dwell on that. Let's smash cut to Corio over here standing on an empty train platform. Because last night when he got home, the cousins agreed that he needs to make a good first impression on Lucy Gray, and Tigress brought up that if she was in Lucy Gray's position, she would just want to know that somebody is on her side. And I mean, there weren't any rules about him not meeting her at the train station, so he can't get in any trouble, right? The only big problem is he has no clue when her train is arriving, so he ends up waiting there for hours and thinks about giving up to leave a few times, but at one of those times, luckily, a train rolls in. Now, normally the tributes would get to the capital, spend about a night there, and then be dumped into the arena the next day. But because of this whole mentor program, they're gonna have an extended stay in the capital. Now, back to the train they're arriving on. This is a cargo train. It's not a passenger train at all. This is the train they would use to transport animals normally. So Snow honestly doesn't even think this is the right train yet until they open the doors and people start coming out, the tributes. And he has to wait there for a while for those doors to open. It takes 20 minutes before a single peacekeeper gets over there to help them out. He's even more shocked when the doors are open to find out, yes, they were transported in livestock cars, but not even clean ones. They've all just been handcuffed in there for basically an entire day. And Snow thinks about the tributes that they really are creatures out of a different world. A brutish world. Honey, your people are the ones who did this to them. But finally, Lucy Gray jumps out of her car with the help of her district mate, Jessup. Snow knows that it is basically now or never right now, so he goes over to Lucy Gray and offers her a rose from Grandmam's garden. She takes the rose, plucks the petal off, eats it, and then tells him that it reminds her of bedtime, because her parents used to bathe her in buttermilk and rose water. They begin talking a little more about how he probably shouldn't be here, but he's like, look, nobody told me not to be here, and she's like, okay. Then he explains the whole mentor program to her and how he's here to take care of her and help her, and she's like, all right, you do your best, and then follows the peacekeepers. Really thinking that he is of no use to her. He knows right now he has to prove that he actually does care about her and actually wants to help her, so, at the very last minute, he jumps into the back of the cage truck that all these kids were forced into. Now, of course, this goes just swimmingly. He's in a cage with a bunch of people who are really pissed off right now because they just got reaped to be in the Hunger Games. And he is a nice capital boy. Everybody wants to attack him, but really the only reason nobody does is because Lucy Gray tells all of them that she needs him. And probably the main thing that got them to stop is she points out that they may not be able to hurt them anymore, but if they have families back home, they'll take it out on them. This convinces everybody to chill out just a little bit, and then people are asking where their mentors are, and she goes, I guess they're just not inspired enough. And just a couple minutes after this conversation, they are literally dumped out of this cage on the back of the truck into a zoo enclosure. It's an empty one, but a zoo enclosure. Hey, has it gotten through to you yet that the Capitol views these people as animals? Because I truly think Suzanne Collins may have been a little ticked off about that in this book, and she's like, oh, you want subtle symbolism? No, we're putting the children in a zoo. Do you get it now? There are Capitol citizens, reporters, all sorts of people outside of the cage of this zoo watching all the tributes and also watching the random boy in an academy uniform in the cage. He's getting really nervous and is wondering if he should try to run out of here right now, get a peacekeeper to get him out, something like that, but Lucy Gray walks over to him, grabs his arm, and goes, own it. And that's exactly what he does. He takes her over to the fence and starts introducing her to the Capitol citizens. She starts talking with the children, getting on their level, being so kind to them. And he realizes she's manipulating them to like her right now, to view her as an actual person. And eventually they make their way over to a reporter. That is not Lucky Flickerman like it is in the movie. I honestly think that was a really good change. It made sense. I liked it. Anyways, Lucy Gray. Lucy Gray, oh, she can put on a performance for an interviewer. She's good at this. They have a nice little introduction with this reporter called Lepidus Malmsby. Malmsby. Lepidus Malmsby. Yeah, not Flickerman, just some random guy. The reporter is trying to confirm that she's from District 12, but she explains she's Covey. They're not from any district specifically. They just traveled from district to district until the capital rounded them all up. They just happened to end up in 12. This poor reporter is just trying his best to confirm that she's from District 12 to not get in trouble with anybody higher up in the capital. And she just responds, if you say so. After a bit more conversation, she gets the attention back on Snow, introducing him as her mentor, explaining that she clearly got the cake with the cream because he's the only one that bothered to show up. The reporter now asks Snow if he's supposed to be here. And again, he says the famous line of, no one told me not to. Shortly after this interview ends because peacekeepers are coming over to Snow to grab him and get him out of here. They're asking him what he was thinking going in there, and he's like, I wasn't thinking about going in there. I just got dumped in there with the rest of the tributes. They're not completely buying his whole innocent act here, and obviously they shouldn't be because he got himself in this situation, but they're directed to take him back to the academy. Corio isn't worried about anything right now because he was just instructed to put on a performance, and that's exactly what he's done so far. Well, he was feeling pretty good until he's dumped outside of the high biology lab, which is where we meet Dr. Gall and also get to come back to Dean Highbottom. Now, this woman all around is terrifying. She has this strange way of speaking where she basically talks in children rhymes, which is just horrifying when it's not to a cute child. And she uses the phrase hippity hoppity a lot, like so much throughout this book. And in her own strange way, she asks him about his time at the zoo and why he was there. He simply explains that Lucy Gray is a small girl and she doesn't really stand a chance in the Hunger Games, so he needs to make sure he makes a big impression with her right now. Dr. Gall loves this, and she's explaining to Dean Highbottom that this one right here, he's taking initiative. Dean Highbottom, though, he's not impressed, and simply asks Snow what he thinks the purpose of the Hunger Games is. He responds with the very stereotypical and kind of correct answer of, it's a way to punish the districts for the rebellion. But then he's asked, why the Hunger Games specifically? He begins to say something and then stops because, why the Hunger Games? Why not just drop bombs or cancel their food? Or stage executions every year? So eventually he says it's because of how children matter to people. But he doesn't quite believe that's the right answer because he's seen how children get treated during those bad times. Children aren't always taken care of. People don't always care about them. Mr. Highbottom here is not satisfied with this answer and uses this to point out that the Hunger Games are a failed experiment to Dr. Gall. Dr. Gall tells Dean Highbottom to give Snow some time because he's just a child himself, and then hurries off to go check on some reptile mutt thing that she's creating. And this leaves Dean Highbottom to roll out some punishments that Snow didn't think he was getting. Snow actually ends up with a demerit, which is his first one ever, for endangering a capital student, aka himself. This demerit is going on his permanent record, and if he gets 3 of them, he's gonna be expelled, losing all chances of going to the nice, fancy university. He's shocked by this because he's never received any sort of reprimand at school in his entire life. But before he can even argue with Dean Highbottom about this, he tells him to get out. This really annoys him, but once he's around other people, they are all congratulating him for his stunt at the zoo, saying it was so cool, brave, awesome. Lucy Gray, she's great, woo! And before you know it, he's on his way back to that zoo. When he gets there, he's shocked to see some commotion going on at the other end of the cage. And the reason for this is because Sejanus is there with a large backpack full of food, just trying to get one of the tributes in there to trust him enough to come over. Right now, he's focused on Dill, the girl from 11. When Snow finds his way over there, he does see that the entire backpack is full of food, and he is shocked by this, and is also annoyed that Sejanus is able to bring all this food because he's not able to, obviously. But none of the tributes trust Sejanus. They haven't seen him before, so they're not coming over to grab it, even though they're starving. And Suzanne over here, in a very blunt way to make sure everybody reading this book gets the point, has a little girl, a little capital girl, march over there and go, "Don't you see the sign? Don't feed the animals." When Sejanus tries to correct this little girl, she doubles down and she's like, "No, they're animals. They're in a cage where they belong." Let me remind you, this is a little girl saying this. Sejanus, with one last hope, tells Snow to take a sandwich over to Lucy Gray because Lucy Gray already trusts him. He grabs one, he goes over, offers it to her, and she takes it. She starts eating, but asks him why he isn't eating, and he can't really think of a good answer for that. But in his mind, he knows that it will be crossing a line to sit down and eat food with her. So he eventually gets out that the food is for her to keep up her strength for the games. She jokes, "So I can break somebody's neck?" We both know that's not my forte. So eventually he gives in because his stomach is also growling. She gives a little cheer and is like, hey, now it's like a picnic. After some encouragement from her, the rest of the tributes go over and grab a sandwich for themselves and start filling the empty bellies that have, again, been empty for a few days at this point. Except for one boy, Marcus from District 2. Sejanus is practically begging him to come over and grab a sandwich, but he's not budging. He doesn't even acknowledge him. Neither of them really know what's going on between Marcus and Sejanus, but Lucy Gray comments that it feels personal. The interviewer from earlier actually comes over for a round 2 of the interviews. Lucy Gray and Corio fill him in on who Sejanus is and why he brought all the sandwiches, all that good stuff. And Lucy Gray, seeing a good opportunity, takes this time to be like, hey, if anybody else from the Capitol wanted to come and bring us food, that'd be a great way to show their support for us. It'd be so nice because nobody else is feeding us. The reporter, again, not wanting to get in trouble with anybody in the upper Capitol area, just goes, okay, and then leaves. Coriolanus takes this time to apologize to Lucy Gray for not thinking about bringing food earlier, explaining that he truly didn't know that they weren't getting anything. She assures him that it's fine because he wouldn't have known that they weren't given any food. And then Snow decides this is a good time to ask her about maybe singing again in a future interview. See, they plan to have an interview the night before the Hunger Games, where all the tributes will get to go up, talk with the host of the Hunger Games, give a little information about themselves, and maybe do something to impress the Capitol citizens. But Lucy Gray's like, yeah, I don't sing when people tell me to. No. And is wondering what he gets out of it. And for some reason, this is the first moment that he realizes that she will be dead in a few days, and starts to actually think of her as a human during this time. Whoa! Breakthrough! It's like when your friend has a really bad boyfriend and the bad boyfriend does something like decent and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool on the outside, but on the inside you're like, yeah, that's basic human decency, my girl. Snow, though, decides to lie to Lucy Gray and is like, I don't really know if I get anything for how you do in the games and all that. And just quickly gets back onto the subject of her singing because he really wants her to sing. Because he wants her to put on a good show before she dies. It's like, hey, maybe even if you sing here, if you sing here in the zoo also, maybe you'll get extra food. And has to mention that he doesn't really have a lot of extra food to bring from home, and she's shocked by this because she just assumed that everybody in the Capitol had enough food. He's instantly filled with regret, though, for being vulnerable for 1 second because he doesn't want anybody to know that the Snows are struggling. But decides to get closer to her. He has to go along with this for now and goes over how during the war he actually ate a jar of paste to stop his stomach from hurting. Then somehow we get back onto the singing, she's kind of over it, and quickly this conversation wraps up. But just a little bit after he leaves, he hears her start to sing. And the song she's singing right now actually reminds him of a song his mother used to sing to him, and it just fills him with some nice, warm, fuzzy feelings. And then not so fuzzy feelings, because he remembers how he lost his mom while she was in labor, giving birth to what should have been his sister, but his sister also died. Then this leads into him thinking about how the rebels are responsible for his mother's death because if the rebels hadn't bombed the city, then people would have been able to get to his mother faster and she would have never died. This makes him think about something that Lucy Gray said earlier about how her mother's pearly white bones are all that's left in District 12. And he's like, you know what? She hasn't really shown any love for District 12. I mean, she's Covey. He's trying to do anything to pretend to convince himself that she's not from the district because he can't even be friendly to somebody that's from a district that's below him. He shouldn't really see her as human as he does. Eventually, though, he shakes himself out of this and starts walking again, and then Sejanus comes up behind him, thanking him for helping him get the food to the tributes and mentioning how none of their classmates would have done something like that. Sejanus then starts going on about how he can't stop picturing himself as one of the tributes. Because remember, he's from District 2. He could have easily been in the Hunger Games. He would still be in the districts if his family didn't get rich during the war. And this is when it's revealed that Marcus was his old classmate back in District 2. Snow is like, this really can't be the reason that Marcus has any bad feelings for you. You guys were literally children when this all happened. And he's like, no, trust me. Everybody back in 2 hates my family, and everybody in the Capitol doesn't like us either. And obviously, because of all this, Sejanus is carrying a lot of guilt about Marcus because he's picturing himself as Marcus, and he can only imagine a fraction of what Marcus is going through. Ugh. Sometimes I wish these books would have followed Sejanus. I feel like it would have been such an interesting story to tell through his perspective, but I don't think you could have done some parts of it as well. It would have been fascinating. But anyways, our main character and the guy we're in the head of right now is just getting annoyed with this conversation. He's over it. It's not like it's Sejanus' fault that Marcus is here, and he doesn't understand why he's whining about this. Whining. No, not having sympathy, empathy, anything like that about this. No, he's just whining. He's complaining for no reason. And also, Marcus is obviously gonna win the Hunger Games, so, like, shut up, dude. Sejanus, you got the pick at the litter, you're fine. Ugh. But when Snow mentions that last part out loud, Sejanus jumps on this opportunity, and he's like, we can trade, I'll take Lucy Gray, you take Marcus, please. Snow thinks about this quite seriously for a little bit, and then he realizes that, no, they don't have that ability anymore. They don't even know if that's allowed. But him and Lucy Gray have already been associated together. He can't just ruin that now. It would look bad. And one other small thing to Snow is that Lucy Gray belongs to him, and that is one thing that belongs to him that he can keep from Sejanus. And he tells him this by saying, sorry, my friend, I think I'll keep her. No, it makes my skin crawl. I hate it. I hate you. Not Tom Blythe. Tom Blythe is fine, but, like, you I don't like. Sejanus' face fills with disappointment from this. And Snow's like, yeah, I love seeing that guy upset. That's so cool, but I can't relish in that right now. I gotta be chill about this. Because that would be petty. So, yes, Snow is happy that this guy is sad because he will have to watch his childhood friend die in the Hunger Games and be his mentor for it. And then Sejanus goes into this whole rant about how the Hunger Games are evil, and he is absolutely right. Get him up on that soapbox. Let him preach. Obviously, he's absolutely correct on all of his takes during this, but it's so strange because we hear this from Snow's perspective, and he's like, ugh, why is he ranting about this? I mean, the Hunger Games are fine. They're, like, kind of violent and messed up a little bit, but we have to have them, and it's so odd. Pretty soon after this, though, they separate. He goes home, and Grandmam is pissed that he would dare eat with a district girl. Then she brings up how his dad used to say that the only reason the districts drink water is because it doesn't rain blood. Again, they view them as creatures. They view these people as creatures. I didn't connect these two things at all the first time I was reading it, but now I'm wondering if this is where the blood rain and the 75th Hunger Games came from, or where this idea came from the 75th Hunger Games to put in this book to have a little tie to it. Tigress is doing her best to defend poor sweet Lucy Gray from her grandmam, even though Lucy Gray is not here. We already see this side of Tigress that is so different from the other capital citizens, especially her family, that she actually does care about these people and she views them as people from the get-go. It doesn't take anybody act nice to her from the district for her to have sympathy for them. But anyways, Tigress dares to call Lucy Gray a girl during her defense of her, and Grandmam goes, trust me, she hasn't been a girl for a while. Grandmam! Grandmam, come on now. What the heck? Snow's trying to convince his grandmother that Lucy Gray is different. Lucy Gray's very nice, but Grandmam's over here like, nope, she's been trying to manipulate you from the start. And after this lovely convo, he goes to bed. He wakes up the next morning and Tigress is already in the kitchen making bread pudding, his favorite. And she makes sure to send him with a serving for her later in the day. But first we have to go to the academy where all his worries about eating with Lucy Gray wash away because everybody is just congratulating him on how well he has done in making people interested in the Hunger Games so far, and it's only been a day? Well, besides Olivia Cardew, she's not too happy. His first class that day is actually a class with just the 24 mentors of the tributes, where they're just thinking of new ways to get people engaged in the Hunger Games. Sejanus over here has the audacity to ask if people should even want to watch the Hunger Games, and the rest of the students in there being fully capital citizens, never living in a district, are like, what a stupid question, Sejanus. One of the other students jokingly throws out that they should just make it a law to watch it if they're having viewership problems. But really, that would be insanely hard to enforce. To all of our surprise, another student does say that the Hunger Games are sickening to watch. Not that they shouldn't have them, they're just sickening to watch. They don't really jive with watching the children kill each other. And Snow is like, oh, come on, we all saw worse during the war. Yeah, that was during a war though, Coriel. The kids don't need to be in the arena, they don't need to be there. And finally, they get to the main problem. Most of them just find the Hunger Games boring, the main problem for the Capitol. I'm having to recap a book that's from his perspective, so I feel like some things I say sound like I'm on the Capitol side, but I'm not. I'm just trying to give you, like, the feel of the book, you know? I don't agree with the Capitol. Anyways, they're all talking about how it's boring, and one of the boys points out that he's more entertained watching dogfights because he can bet on those. I'm not even gonna talk about how messed up dogfights are. If you're watching this channel, I hope you know that. If you've ever gone to a dogfight, leave right now. I don't want you here. Snow, after hearing this, makes a little joke that maybe they should put odds on the tributes so people can bet on them, and then the room kind of laughs, then goes silent, and then they're like, wait a second. That's not a bad idea. And obviously, Snow is now ready to take full credit for this idea. And now, cut to after lunch, where all the mentors meet in another part of the academy to have about a 15-minute interview session with their tribute. They're given these pieces of paper to fill out with information, their family, their friends, what they do in their district, stuff like that. At the start, these two catch up for a bit. He gives her the bread pudding from Tigerus, and then they get into that questionnaire I was talking about. We learn that both of her parents are dead, as well as her two older siblings. The only people she really has left in her life are her cousins and the rest of the people in the covey. He gets to the question of if she's married, because some of the people in the districts do get married fairly young, but she's not. And she goes, no, but I do think this could work out. Lucy Gray, I didn't know your game. He just decides to play this cool, let this slide over, lean into it a little, but not too much. Then we get into some details about the covey. They don't make a lot of money in 12, of course, nobody really has a lot of money there, but people will pull their money together to hire them for weddings, they play in the hob, stuff like that. It then gets brought up again that the covey were just traveling during the war, and they weren't part of it, but they just got stuck in District 12 once it was all over, because that's where they were. Then we're ripped out of this nice, cutesy little backstory of the covey. It's just quite wholesome, honestly, for the most part, into talking about the night before the Hunger Games are supposed to start. See, they're gonna have an interview for the first time the night before the Hunger Games with the tributes. Now, it's not mandatory for the tributes to be there. I find that a little strange for the Capitol, actually giving people choices. Amazing. And he really wants to talk to her about singing during this interview because he thinks it could make a lot of people like her and it would be really entertaining, and that is the project she's currently working on, making the Hunger Games entertaining. How many times can I say that? She doesn't really see the point of this though, because she only sings when she has something to say. Sounds a lot like Suzanne Collins, who only writes when she has something to say. At least we think. I feel like we just made that up. She never said that, but all of us were like, yeah, Suzanne, she only writes when she's got something to say. And I mean, so far, that seems true. Back to Lucy Gray though, there's no benefit to her singing. They don't know about the possible sponsors or anything like that right now. He doesn't even know if that's gonna happen at all. So he doesn't bring it up. She doesn't know that there might be a benefit to her singing, so why would she sing for these people? Why? There's no good reason. And this leads into her finally having a little bit of a breakdown and showing her true feelings on this whole situation. Going into how the only thing that's really holding her together right now is the fact that she's wearing her mother's dress. Snow, meanwhile, during this breakdown, not really bothered by it, is still just trying to get answers out of her and still trying to convince her to sing during this frickin' opening night interview. The most he gets out of her is that she will sing a few bars for him backstage. Shortly after that, their 15 minutes are up and he catches up with the rest of the mentors, and basically none of them really had any luck with their tributes because none of their tributes know them or trust them at all. They have no relationship with them. I mean, yes, he's just kind of using her for his benefit, but she thinks he actually kind of cares, and in his own twisted way, he kind of does, but not really. And the mentors that did get stuff out of their tributes are like, it wasn't that interesting. So why would they bother to get to know them anymore? Because they're boring, boring people. Then they all file into Dr. Gall's lab, where they're handing in their questionnaires. Snow's hands in his, she sees it, and then she asks the rest of them why theirs aren't filled out as much. He's the one to explain to her that most of the other tributes aren't talkers, and even she can't see the point in performing in that interview. So Janus steps up at this point and he's like, we're torturing them before the games even start. Why would they cooperate with us? They're getting nothing out of it. This doesn't stop him from talking though. He points out that some of these tributes were 2 years old when the rebellion ended. They're not rebels. They're just citizens of Panem, like everybody else in that room. Dr. Gall though, she sees this empathy and this drive he has to protect these tributes and manipulates it into something to use for the games. Because what if the people watching the games had a way to help out the tributes in the arena by sending food or other items into the arena? I mean, wouldn't that interest people? One of the students jumps in on this and he's like, yeah, I would absolutely feed them if I could bet on them, like Snow mentioned earlier. And this right here is when Dr. Gall lays out the gauntlet for them to all put their heads together and write a presentation on this, to pitch it to the game makers, it being betting on tributes and also sending food in for them. One of the girls, Livia, is shocked by this and she's like, you would actually consider our ideas? And she's like, yeah, if they got merit. And this right here is when it's revealed that Dean Highbottom came up with the idea for the Hunger Games as a university project. He is in the room, so he grumbles that it was all just theoretical. She goes, yes, so is this experiment unless it proves useful. You would think Corio would be over the moon with this, that they might use one of his ideas, but he's not too happy about it because it's turned into a group project and he wants full credit for it. Even though, might I say, I don't think he's the one who actually came up with the idea. His friend mentioned betting on dogfights. I would give more credit to that guy for bringing up betting than Snow, but hey, that's just me. Are we giving credit to the dogfight guy? They're all horrible. Why? Gosh. Obviously, all 24 people in this class working on one giant group project all together would get messy really fast, so they vote to have Choreo, Clemencia, and Archon all work on the project together. So they will all flesh out the ideas this evening and then present it tomorrow. Later in the day, as soon as the academy is dismissed, he heads straight over to the zoo to see one Lucy Gray. He's asking her if she's gotten any food today, and she's like, not a lot, honestly, but a little. And then perfect timing, a little boy walks over with a potato for Lucy Gray. What? This is how the little boy walks, don't you know? While she's eating the potato, he's looking around the zoo to see that more of the mentors are here today interacting with their tributes. Or at least trying to talk to them. Some of the tributes have actually started doing tricks so people will give them food. And then somehow the conversation between these two switches to them talking about what their relationship would be like if they would have met under different circumstances and kind of envisioning themselves as a couple. Yeah, weird turn of events, but okay. But luckily, they're snapped back to reality when there's a loud noise from the crowd because one of the tributes is doing tricks right now. Their eyes are eventually drawn to Archan, who is teasing her tribute with food and trying to get them to do more and more for her, but never giving them the food. And all of a sudden, time kind of goes into slow motion for Snow as he watches the tribute that she is teasing grab the knife that she was cutting cheese with out of her hand and slice her throat. I'm not saying she deserved it, but they watch the blood start to pour out of her throat. His first reaction is to recoil until Lucy Gray has to tell him to go help her. He ends up being the first one to get over to her and is crying out for a medic while he just tries to stop the blood that is pouring out of her neck and looks over just in time to see the girl from District 10 get shot. This sends the zoo into complete hysteria. He starts watching as people get trampled, children get trampled. During the chaos, his classmate Festus makes it over to him and is asking if there's anything he can do to help, but really, there's not. She is bleeding out from her neck. There's nothing you can do about that, really. And he's like, no, and then he gets transferred back into thinking about the war and during when the bombs would drop, because right now in his mind, he's in what he would call bomb time, where everything moves slower and you're just trying to make it through it. The medics eventually arrive, get the girl on a stretcher, and haul her off. And then all the other medics start helping people who got caught by stray bullets because they were firing at the tributes, or the people who got trampled while everybody was running away. And eventually the peacekeepers show up to get everybody out of there. Now, Snow didn't necessarily care about this girl. He actually found her quite annoying, that he likes to mention right after she died. But anyways, she was kind of like the old money class and kind of family in a weird twisted up way, I guess. So he feels a little bad because of that, or a little sad, not really bad. He's a weird guy, if you didn't figure that out already. Clemencia ends up catching up with him and Festus and is going on about how they can't be expected to do the class project tonight anymore. And he agrees at the time, but when he gets home, he knows that Dr. Gall would definitely be the one to still expect them to do the class project and have it ready by tomorrow, even though their friend is dead. Once he's inside, he has a moment with his family, but then he knows he has to get to work preparing this presentation about having sponsors and betting on the Hunger Games. The next morning, he heads straight over to the Citadel where they have all the Hunger Games business and drops his paper on Dr. Gall's desk. On his way to the academy, people are once again praising him for how he acted during Archan's death. I know I'm saying her name horribly wrong. Please comment and tell me how to say it, but I'm never gonna have to say it again, but you can. It would be helpful for the people watching this who just know that it's bad. Anyways, he's getting praised for how he acted, and people are saying that he was like a brother to her, and he knows that's nowhere close to the relationship they had, but hey, why disrespect the dead? Why stop getting the praise from people? Of course, her death is brought up at the academy, and they go over how her funeral will be tomorrow, and it will be aired all over Panem. That's not normal for funerals, but obviously this was a public killing of a Capitol member by somebody from the districts. And then business as usual. They just hand over a sheet with all the names of the tributes and their mentors. Right away, people all start crossing out the name of the girl from 10, but nobody really wants to cross out their classmate's name because that's awkward. I mean, she was an actual like person, you know? Not somebody from the districts. After about 10 minutes into the class, a note comes over for Clemencia and Coriolanus to head over to Dr. Gall's lab. On their way over, Clemencia is shocked that Corio actually wrote that last night because she didn't think he was, and she was like, I was literally crying all night, how did you do that? And he's like, I needed something to distract me. And then gives her all the details on it so they can at least pretend like they co-wrote it together. When they arrive at the Citadel to Dr. Gall's lab, they see her staring at a large glass terrarium terrarium of snakes. Very colorful, vibrant snakes. Definitely not natural, definitely a type of mutt. Clemencia asks if there's a point to their color, and Dr. Gall says there's a point to everything. And that brings her to asking about their class project. Snow is the one to jump in this one to say that the whole class discussed it, but himself and Clemencia wrote it. He also brings up that of course she was supposed to help out with this as well, but we all know what happened to her. Dr. Gall asks for some clarification on how this whole thing worked out, and Clemencia decides this is a brilliant time to jump in and give her side of the story, how they co-wrote it at the library, and then she printed it all out, and Snow was the one to drop it off this morning. He's like, yeah, that's how it happened, absolutely. Dr. Gall over here is like, oh cool, I just wanted to confirm that you both had touched it. Snow, not thinking anything of this comment, because why would you? Just says that they would be happy to go over any part of the paper and discuss it further with her if she has any questions. She asks them if they brought a copy. They both say no, because why would they bring a copy when they are pretty sure she has one because he dropped it off this morning. He even asks about the copy that he dropped off this morning, and she's like, oh, well, it fell into the terrarium with all the snakes. But you could reach in there and grab it for me, couldn't you? She tells Snow to start. He puts his hand in. None of the snakes are bothering him. They're ignoring him. He grabs the paper just fine. Then she tells Clemencia to put her hand in there. And she does, and at first it's okay, and then Dr. Gall starts going on this whole monologue about how the snakes will respond really well and basically just ignore anyone whose scent they already know. You know, from like a piece of paper they touched, or anything like that. But if they don't know their scent, they're going to view them as a threat. And this is when Clemencia gets bitten by a snake. She screams, obviously, lab assistants rush over, inject her with something, and then cart her off. Snow has no clue if his friend is alive or dead right now. Snow straight up asks Dr. Gall if his friend is gonna die because who else is he gonna ask right now? And she's like, I don't know, we'll find out. What do you mean we'll find out? Who are you? And she just calmly switches the subject back to the proposal that he wrote alone and tells him to never, ever lie to her again. Because if he does, she'll have to bring it to the attention of Dean Highbottom, who we already know that Mr. Highbottom does not like Mr. Snow. Once that's all cleared up, she goes over how she gave the proposal to her team so they could start implementing it in the game. Mind you, Clemencia just got bitten by a snake and he doesn't know if she's gonna live or die, or who will tell her story. And then he's told he can go, and he skedaddles out of there. He actually gets a little lost, sees some people with some gills on them inside of some tanks. Very creepy stuff. They were once Avoxes, and now they got gills and they're inside water tanks. It's bad. Anyways, he also runs into some birds. A lady yells at him and then points him towards the exit. And he gets a little bit away from the Citadel and then collapses on the ground and starts sobbing. Because what else are you supposed to do after all that happens in the time frame of about 5 minutes? Also, I mean, the biggest factor for Snow is that if Clemencia is dead, that means he's in trouble too, because nobody will want them to know how Clemencia died, and then they'll just kill Snow. He does figure she is probably at the hospital, so he decides to run over there to check if she is alive, so he can kind of calm himself down a little bit. Like, it wouldn't really matter to him if she was alive or not. He just needs to know that she's alive for, like, his sake, not her well-being. She could be dead if it wouldn't affect him for all he cares. He gets there, he runs up to the nurse's counter, babbles something, and they're like, okay, kid, sit down. And they bring him some crackers because they're like, this kid is not doing well right now. Then somebody comes over to assure him they've treated patients that have had mishaps at the lab before and Clemencia's okay. As he's leaving, he sees her parents rush in, but he doesn't want to talk to them at all about what just happened, so he just leaves. He doesn't want to go home, and then somehow he ends up back at the zoo to see Lucy Gray, but of course the zoo isn't open right now. People just died there. But luckily, he plays the mentor card and a peacekeeper lets him in. So, under the peacekeeper's watch, he gets to have a little one-on-one time with Lucy Gray, and the peacekeeper. It is important to note that while he's walking in, he does notice some white powder like along the rocks there. He asks if it's rat poison and the peacekeeper confirms that yes, it's rat poison. Now when they actually get to the enclosure that the tributes are in, he's not even really allowed to get that close to the cage at all, but they do get to talk. She's not looking too good. It's the middle of the day, the sun's really hot, and they don't have anybody bringing them anything right now. And goes over how her and her district partner Jessup take turns napping during the middle of the day. And the reason they take turns is so they can keep the rats off of each other. Because they found out that the rats kind of have a taste for human flesh. Really fun, because they bit Jessup one of the first nights they were here. With the heavy events of today and yesterday weighing on him, he looks at Lucy Gray and he just says, I am so sorry and you must hate me. She assures him that she doesn't hate him, the Hunger Games weren't his idea. But he's in his head and he's like, I should try to be like Sejanus and at least try to quit the mentor program. And she's like, no, you're the only person helping me right now. Please don't quit. At one point during all this, she steps forward a little closer to the cage of the enclosure and she looks like she's about to faint. This pulls Snow right out of his sad boy spiral because obviously things in his life aren't that bad. He remembers that he still has the crackers that the hospital gave him and hands them over to Lucy Gray so she can at least have something today. She eats one of them and then saves the other for Jessup. He's like, why are you doing that? And she's like, well, we're gonna be partners in the arena. That's why I'm doing that. He assures her he will try to get more food to her soon here and also tells her about how they will probably be able to get food to them in the arena. So this gets them right back to talking about the interview and how she should actually sing there now because people will be donating to her so he can send her things in the arena when she does this. He doesn't know why she does this, but she confirms that this will be airing all over Panem and not just in the capital. When he says yes, she's like, okay, if you can get me a guitar, maybe I'll sing. He assures her that he will get her something. The peacekeeper at this point, though, is like, all right, kids, time to go. And she's like, hey, I just want to say thank you for the crackers today and thank you for taking care of me. It means a lot. She's going on about how all in all, it doesn't really feel like she matters in there to anyone. And he's like, you do, you matter to me. And the peacekeeper over here is breaking up this moment and he's like, hey kid, we gotta go. I wasn't even really supposed to allow you in here. Please don't get me fired. He follows the peacekeeper, but before he's out of earshot, she shouts that she doesn't believe that he's here just for the grade and calls him a rare bird. He shouts back a simple, you too, and leaves. Knowing that if he doesn't find a way to get Lucy Gray some actual food before the Hunger Games, she may not even make it to the games. When he gets home, he collapses on his bed and passes out until Tigris wakes him up, letting him know that Satyria has called him 3 times now. He wakes up shortly after there's another call from her. He picks it up, and it's her asking him to sing the national anthem at the funeral tomorrow. Of course, he knows all the words, but he's a high school boy. He doesn't really want to sing in front of everybody, but he agrees to do it. And that leads us right to the funeral, where it starts off with him singing the national anthem. Then the whole procession begins with a speech from the president. After that, the first thing we see is a flatbed truck with a crane attached to it, with the District 10 girl up top of the crane, hanging from like a crossbeam, and then below that is a very short cage holding the rest of the tributes. I have no words. I have no words. And then you have some peacekeepers, the casket, and her family. Dr. Gall then gets up to say some very nice things about the fallen girl and her family. And Snow was sitting there thinking about how none of this is true. And she was actually really annoying. And she wasn't nice at all. And how she died for a cheap laugh. I mean, oh my word, buddy, I thought she was at least kind of your friend. But apparently you were mortal enemies. Finally, the funeral is over and they break for food. Where they get more pie. Snow gets there, gets a huge plate of food this time. He doesn't care what people think about him. He's a grieving, starving boy right now, okay? He's chowing down when Sejanus comes over with a much smaller plate of food and he sits down, not eating anything. Snow's like, why aren't you eating? And he's like, because of how the tributes were treated during the parade. Snow doesn't want to dwell on that though, and then we cut to a tour of the mentors and the tributes all at the arena. Woo! I'm losing it. The Coliseum building that they hold the Hunger Games in used to be the place that they watched all their entertainment back in the heyday of the Capitol, but now it's where they put all the children to die. Isn't that fun? To get into the arena, you have to go through the Capitol turnstile thing and have to put in a little Capitol coin, and it says, enjoy the show as you walk in. Once they're in the arena, he starts looking around for any advantage Lucy Gray could get in here, and he decides the best plan for her would be if she can go and hide up in the stands, but there's really no place to hide. It's a simple Coliseum building. But they keep walking around discussing different strategies and then all of a sudden, bam, there's an explosion. Just explodes. Snake bites, explosion, jump scares galore. Snow automatically falls flat on his belly, guarding as much of himself as he can, and he's back in bomb time, of course. Once he thinks the explosions are finished, he lifts up his head, only for something to fall hard on his back. So now he's pinned down by the weight of a beam that's fallen on him. Not only is this very heavy beam on him, no, the beam is also on fire. He starts crying out for help, and this is where Lucy Gray makes a big mistake. She doesn't just let Snow die here, and that would have saved everybody a whole lot of pain, I feel like. No. She goes back and saves him during this. Mind you, there's an opening for her to run at this point, and she still turns back to save him. Once she gets him out of trouble, she's yanked away by peacekeepers that throw her to the ground and start pointing guns at her head. He doesn't remember much after this and then wakes up on Sunday. Tigris and Grandmam are there when he wakes up. He explains what Lucy Gray did for him, and Grandmam's like, yeah, well, she would have run away if she wasn't afraid of getting shot. Aye, grandma'am. She saved your only grandson. Be happy. After getting some more information about this bombing from Tigris and how they're pretty sure it's a rebel plan, obviously, it doesn't really make sense to him because they couldn't even guarantee that Capitol citizens were going to be there. Even though it doesn't make sense, the unexpected losses have shocked the Capitol. I mean, they're not really concerned about the 2 tributes from District 6 that died because of shrapnel getting shot into them by the explosions. Oh my gosh. But they also lost the Ring twins, and 3 mentors have been hospitalized, including himself. The other 2 are in critical condition currently, one having lost both of their legs. And really, anybody in that arena needed some type of medical treatment after the explosion. We also learned that the only reason Lisa Strada was saved was because Jessup is her tribute and he jumped over her, using his body to protect her. There were also tributes that ran out of the arena trying to escape to freedom. Both of the tributes from 1 and 2 did this. Both the tributes from 1 are dead. The girl from 2 is dead, but Marcus is still out and about in the Capitol. Nobody knows where he is. But Grandmam says that the worst part is that it took them 20 seconds to cut the live feed to the rest of Pan Am, so all the districts know what happened, and she knows they're celebrating this. And you know what she says? She says, "This is the type of story that catches fire." Like the book catching fire. Ah! I'm sorry. When a doctor comes in a little later, Snow is asking if the tributes have been checked on, and the doctor's like, "Yeah, they got a veterinarian over there checking on them." A veterinarian! Not a doctor, a veterinarian! You couldn't spare one doctor, one nurse that knows how to do just as much stuff as a doctor of what I'm aware. No, a vet. You sent a vet for the children? Okay, psychos. Oh, sorry, I did forget to mention that it's a top-tier veterinarian. Wow. Then Snow gets some more medicine put into his system. He's knocked out. The following day is the funeral for the twins, and the manhunt for Marcus is still going strong. So right now, we have 3 mentors dead, 3 hospitalized, 4 if you include Clemencia, and several wounded. Yeah, this Hunger Games is going great for the Capitol. Speaking of Clemencia, in the early hours of Tuesday, he's woken up by her. She's got like green reptile eyes, yellow reptile eyes, and is obviously not doing well. Oh, I forgot to mention her tongue is also just like sticking out periodically like a snake's. She tells him to stay quiet because she shouldn't be here right now, and then asks him why he hasn't come to check on her, and is wondering if her parents think she's dead. He explains to her that he saw her parents at the hospital. They've been there. She tells him that no one has actually seen her, and she's pretty sure they're going to just end up killing her to cover all this up. He's confused. It's the wee hours of Tuesday morning. He just woke up. He doesn't know what's going on. So he's like, "Who's gonna kill you?" And she's like, "Dr. Gall." He doesn't want to deal with this right now, though, and he's like, "Look, you're sick. The snake bite is making you think things. You need to get back to your room." She is so offended by this and then pulls down part of the hospital gown she's wearing and says, "Am I imagining this as there are snake scales that are growing out of her body?" And then just like that, 2 of the hospital staff show up and carry her off to her room. Bye-bye, Clemencia. Snow is now scared that he might have put Tigris into trouble by telling her about what happened to Clemencia. When he asks about her in the morning, the doctor just tells him that she'll be fine in a bit, and if he wants to, he can go up and visit her right now. And he's like, "No, I don't wanna." Eventually, Snow is allowed to go home, work through all the trauma there, and when he finally shows back up to the academy, he is shocked to see how few mentors are actually in the room when he gets there, because half of them are missing because they're dead or in the hospital, and the other half that are missing are not there because their tribute is dead. But the rest of them who are still alive get to meet up with their tributes again. Well, he, right away, of course, thanks Lucy Gray for saving his life. And then gives her a sandwich and 2 cookies. And he's like, "Man, is this really what her life is worth to me? A sandwich and 2 cookies?" And eventually asks her why she didn't run. She points out that it seemed like a lot of trouble to just get shot eventually. He knows that she's just trying to joke and make light of the situation, but he tells her that seriously, he hopes that he can repay her someday, some way. And then it clicks to him that their roles are very different now. It used to be just him in power because he was the one giving her stuff, helping her make it to the Hunger Games, helping her through the Hunger Games. But now, he basically has a life debt to her. Lucy Gray is now in a position of power. She has the right to demand things of him now. And I don't know if he likes that. When he tells her that he honestly doesn't know how to repay her, she tells him that he could start by actually believing that she could win these games. And it clicks to Snow that he never really thought she could win. It was never part of his strategy to have her win. But with everybody else being so weak, it might just work out. So they shake on the fact that they are now both in it to win it. It's now time to ask the hard questions. Like, would she be willing to kill someone? And she says, maybe in self-defense. He explains that it's the Hunger Games. Everything is self-defense. But maybe their best strategy for her at the start is for her to run and hide until the tributes start thinning themselves out. Then he confirms that she actually does want to do the interviews, that she actually does want to sing, and tells her that he will be finding her guitar today. Once these interviews are over, they're all back with Dr. Gall talking about all of this, and Sejanus goes on another one of his rants about how insane all of this is, and he's about to storm out, and she's like, "Oh, do you want to sit down, or do you want me to get somebody to take you to your father's office?" And he sits back down. And Snow, apparently not able to help himself, offers Sejanus the seat next to him. He doesn't even like this guy. Once he's settled, they start getting into some of the theology of the games. One of the girls brings up that if the war is over, shouldn't the fighting be over? And then one of the guys bring up that the fighting clearly isn't over. I mean, look what the districts just did to them today. Not that they continued the fighting from the start with the Hunger Games. The girl is asking if this means the war can't even be won, if they're still actively in it. Dr. Gall has them elaborate on this point, on what do you do if you can't actually win a war? She calls on Snow, and he says if it's not winnable, then we have to control it indefinitely, like we do right now. Then Dr. Gall assigns them to write an essay on everything they find attractive about a war. What? Class ends, and he knows it's time to hunker down and find this guitar. So he heads over to Pluribus Bell's nightclub, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, you got a guitar?" And Pluribus Bell is like, "Yeah, anything for you, kid." And he gives him a guitar. And I don't know what's happening to me. I'm going insane. Anyways, he gets the guitar for Lucy Gray, so Lucy Gray is all set to sing tomorrow night. Oh, and we also learn an interesting little tad bit from Pluribus Bell here, that Dean Highbottom and his father were very good friends at the university. They actually would hang out at the nightclub together constantly. He doesn't really know what to do with that information right now, but he'll remember it, and it might just come in handy later. Oh, sorry, the interviews are tonight. I don't know what I'm talking about, clearly. He makes it to where the interviews are being held tonight with the host, Keith Fleckerman, and he is just like his son. He gets the guitar over to Lucy Gray, she starts tuning it, and they start watching all the interviews. And really, there's nothing much to any of the other tributes interviews. They're all just talking about how they'll kill people to try to win over food. Some people are trying to play on people's empathies to get food, but nobody is really doing much besides that. It's not as big of a performance as the later interviews are. Before she goes on, they have this little conversation about how her chances just keep getting better and better to win these games, and she's like, "Well, of course they do. It's not over until the Mockingjay sings." Snow at this point doesn't even know what a mockingjay is, but she assures him that it's a real bird. He's wondering if it sings in her show. She's like, "No, but it does sing in the Capitol show." And when the war ends and everything, like the whole Hunger Games is over, Katniss is happy enough, and at the end of the movie, she sings again. So like their show was over when the Mockingjay is happy and singing. I love the connections in this book. I love it. Lucy Gray, though, now goes out on stage and sings the Ballad of Lucy Gray, also a stellar song. You should go listen to it. It's got some stuff about her ex in there, about how she was a bet that was lost in the reaping. All the Capitol people love this, and Snow is happy they do, but he doesn't because she's talking about another man. And doesn't she know, doesn't she understand, and people should understand in general, that Lucy Gray belongs to him, not anybody else, definitely not another man. And she dares to tell people that she had a life before she met him? How dare she? Now, to be fair to Snow, he does think that he doesn't really know if he has any claim to her heart, but he doesn't want anybody else to. He seriously feels betrayed by this song. Mind you, she's about to go to the Hunger Games and fight for her life, but oh, poor sad boy has to figure out that Lucy Gray maybe dated people before she even knew he existed. Oh, boo-hoo. When she gets back, she explains that that song was to tie up some loose ends in District 12, and also hints at the fact once again that her reaping wasn't fair. Her name was not the one that mayor pulled out. She knows that most people won't get all this from one song, but she knows that her covey will. Then some peacekeepers come over and take her away. They're smiling at her, and he's wondering just how friendly Lucy Gray can be. I'm sorry. Now, don't get me wrong, he's been awful throughout the whole book, and is just an awful human being, but comments of a serial killer or a stalker. Obviously, he's much, much worse than either of those, because he murders so many people by continuing the Hunger Games for years once he's president, but he also poisons people, let's not forget about that. Okay, I'm not gonna rant about him again just yet. Give me a second. Once he's backstage with a bunch more Capitol people, they're all congratulating him with her success on stage, and he's like, "Ah, good. Well, it's very clear to these people that Lucy Gray still belongs to me." I'm sure she does, buddy. Then he bumps into Sejanus and his ma. He thanks her for the casserole that he sent over while he was injured, blah, 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 all this complimentary stuff, and tells her that if she ever needs anything to just let him know. He doesn't care about this lady. She's district. Then Tigers comes over to him and he starts talking about some of his true feelings about the performance, and she's like, well, it sounds like her life was just hard and somebody she loved broke her heart. But he doesn't want to hear about that because he's stuck on the part where she mentioned something about living by her charms. Tigers goes, that could be about anything. But Snow isn't buying it. So she ends up having to be the one to put some empathy into this boy's body and has to explain to him that her parents died young. She was on her own for quite a while and had to make do somehow. So who knows what she did, but at least she survived. Mentioning that they've all done things they're not proud of. He tells her, no, you didn't. She's like, no, I did. This gets him thinking once again where she really got all the stuff to make his shirt, because he had gone down this dark path originally, but he's like, Tigers would never do anything like that. But now it sounds like Tigers might have had to do stuff like that to get them through during the times during the war, but he never thought about that because he was just a little boy. I don't know where these voices are coming from, but he never thought about that because he was just a kid. But I mean, this kid has grown up and could have thought about that, but never did. This conversation basically just fizzles out. They make it back to the apartment, and when they get there, they find that the elevator that has been broken for years is operational again. And they have to wonder if this is the Capitol trying to spiffy up their building before they start putting taxes on it, taxing them out of the apartment they've been in for years. They make it up there. Grandmam is going over Lucy Gray's performance and is like, you know, even though she's a trashy girl, oh my gosh, Grandmam, I wonder where Snow gets it from. I wonder where Coriolanus Snow gets his attitude from. I think it might be this little lady right here. Then they start talking about the project that he has to do about writing a paper about stuff he loved about the war. So they all start going over stuff. They love the parades. They could see it really well from their penthouse. They were given stuff during the war for his father's honors, stuff like that. They had a little victory garden on the roof where the rose garden is. And, you know, just the resourcefulness overall it made them all have. And of course he thinks about how he liked the ability to control things. And I mean, none of us could have seen that one coming. Snow liking control? Shocker. Now, because of everything that's happened, the interviews ended up not being the night before the games, but like the night before the games. So the next day, they're just going over all the donations that everybody got on the news that morning, and Lucy Gray clearly has the most. And his classmates are explaining this by saying that people just love a long shot, because still, nobody thinks that this girl stands a chance. But they actually need to focus on their academy studies. So a little later, they're in Dr. Gall's room, and they start reading parts of their essays aloud about the war. He soon realizes that everybody else had much better stuff to write about that they liked during the war than him, and is embarrassed once it's his turn to read part of his paper. Well, besides Sejanus, because all he said was that he liked that he lived in District 2, and I mean, fair on him, honestly. Then, much later that day, it's finally time for him to go to the zoo and say goodbye to Lucy Gray. He has some food, a brightly colored rose from Grandmam's garden because she loves bright, colorful things, and something else special that Lucy Gray will be able to borrow for the games. She's of course grateful for the food, and she actually eats it all, and he's surprised that she's not saving any to share with Jessup, but she explains that Jessup hasn't eaten anything the past few days. She thinks maybe it's just nerves or something. She doesn't really know. He's also been acting kind of funny, but really all the tributes have the last few days because they're about to go in the Hunger Games. Knowing that fate is coming at you full speed messes with your brain a little bit. I mean, the last few days, Reaper over here has been apologizing to everybody for having to kill them in the games, but he swears that he'll avenge them all. Fair enough, Reaper is the big, strong guy from District 11. Lucy Gray starts to get a little more emotional, apologizing, explaining that it's easier to keep up this happy facade during the day and keep her hopes up during the day, but once night hits, everything just gets a little more real. And she just lets out this little soft whisper of, I don't want to die, while she's crying. He tells her, of course you don't, and I won't let you. She, though, starts going on about this whole thing about how he'll be happy when she dies because she's been nothing but trouble to him. And she can tell that he hated the song she sung at the interviews. He explains to her that he's gonna be a complete wreck tomorrow once the games start, and assures her that he truly cares about her like a friend because he doesn't have the right to tell her anything more. He says something a little reassuring about the song, not really anything important there. She eventually stops crying, and he tells her that if she follows the plan, she will get out of there. It's basically a guaranteed. Then, he gives her the thing he brought for her to borrow. It was one of his mother's powder packs that still has a slight hint of that rose smell that she always had. It's gorgeous, it's made out of silver, and it has a rose on top. Just exactly what Lucy Gray would like, and a nice reminder of him while she's in there. She truly doesn't believe that she should be taking this into the arena, but he explains to her that it's something for her to borrow, and that way she'll have to make it out so she can get it back to him. She opens it, she sees the spot meant for powder, but that spot is empty, and he goes, I thought maybe you could fill it with something else, wink wink nudge nudge. You know, aka the rat poison. But she assures him that she will not be thinking about that guy anymore, ever. And then these two kiss on the lips. Yay. Then a peacekeeper just pops up right there, pulls Lucy Gray away, and he's like, yeah, I know I crossed a line, but I don't regret it. And when he gets home, he tells Tigress all about it. And then starts coming up with all the ways that Lucy Gray isn't a district citizen. I mean, she's Covey. They just happen to end up in District 12. They could have just happened to end up in the capital just as easily. So, I mean, she's not from the districts, really. Now, we get to the day of the Hunger Games starting. He gets to the academy, gets a little light makeup on because they're going to be on camera because Lucy? Because Lucky Flickerman will actually be filming the Hunger Games live from Heavensby's Hall. Heavensby's Hall. Plutarch. It's Plutarch. But like Plutarch's like grandparents. Dr. Gall then comes over to give him a little pep talk and is like, yeah, your girl's not gonna last a day in there. And he's like, yeah, well, you know what they say, it's not over till the Mockingjay sings. And Dr. Gall is confused because nobody says that. That's just a Covey district thing, apparently. Oh, and the Hunger Games haven't even started, but we've also lost another tribute already. This time a tribute from District 5. He passed away last night due to complications from asthma or something. They don't know because they have a vet there. So going into the games, we have both tributes from District 3, so 2 right there. 1, 2. And District 4. Another 2 right there. We only have the girl from 5. Yes, I know if I was doing tally marks I would cross it, but we're gonna cross these off as we lose more and more tributes, okay? So we're not gonna do the streak across. Got it? We've got both tributes from 6. The tallies are a different size now, I'm so sorry. Both from 8 as well. 1 tribute from 10, the boy, and then both tributes from 11 and 12. And then I forgot to mention that Marcus is still technically alive right now, but he's not going into the games, but we'll put him on here. So going into the games, they have 15 tributes alive. He goes in to update his list that he has with all the tributes' name on it, with the boy from 5 passing away. And when he sticks the paper back in his bag, he finds the handkerchief that he used to dry Lucy Gray's tears last night in there. But anyways, he has a little pre-game interview with Lucky Flickerman because he actually has more to share about his tribute since he actually knows her, unlike the rest of these mentors. After Snow's done with his interview, Highbottom comes over, gives a little interview about the whole Tribute Mentor Alliance thing, saying that it's essential to know your enemies, and hoping that they showed them that it would be a mistake to think that the tributes lacked intelligence or strength just because they're from the districts. Lucky Flickerman's like, you can't possibly be comparing our fine children to those beasts from the districts. Highbottom's like, no, I'm serious. There's no real difference between the people in the capital and the people in the districts. Lucky Flickerman doesn't really say much else because he doesn't want to get in trouble on live TV and just says, fascinating. And then quickly pulls a piece of flat candy out from behind Dean Highbottom's ear because Lucky Flickerman is also a magician. Dean Highbottom then in passing tells Snow that he should probably find a seat near the door and makes sure Sejanus is with him. While he's getting a seat, Lisa Strata comes over to him, upset that he didn't tie Lucy Gray to Jessup anymore in his interviews because they agreed they were going to try to pair them together as a team. Snow apologizes and assures her if he has another chance, he will do his best to tie them together. But before they can talk about that anymore, they're called to officially get into their seats so they can start the Hunger Game. All the mentors who still have tributes in the games get these fancy communicuff things that we see in District 13 and the Mockingjay movies. And these things are a really big deal right now to everybody in the capital because there's just not a ton of extra fun technology going about. Lisa Strata is sitting next to Snow and then starts asking him why he thinks they're even being forced to be mentors because this feels more like a punishment than an honor. And this is the first time he's thought about this in any other way than an honor. He starts to feel a little confused and manipulated by these people he trusted, and is wondering if he's more like a tribute than a mentor right now, just being used for a part of this game. And I think this thought right there is what eventually leads the mentors to being the old tributes from the Hunger Games, because he realizes that the mentors get sucked in just as much as the tributes sometimes. And he knows from personal experience now, you start to care about your tributes. So how can you hurt the surviving victors over and over and over again and keep dashing any hope they have or any fight they still have in them? Watch children die that they care about every year. It is evil genius right there. And I am convinced he is the reason that it happens that way. Clemencia, though, now just pops up, coming over thanking Corio for visiting her at the hospital. There's, of course, a lot of sarcasm in that statement. He starts to say something and she's like, no, but also thank you for having my parents check in on me or letting them know where I was or how I was doing. Thanks so much, Corio. Lisa Strata is the one to jump up and is like, hey, we all knew where you were. We were just told you weren't allowed to have visitors. Yeah, nobody else really knows what happened to her. They don't know that she's got snake scales on her. She's still clearly upset, but people around her are telling her to just calm down because it's not Corio's fault that she got sick. So Janus finally shows up. Snow calls him over because he did get a seat near the door for him, like Dean Highbottom advised him to. And that's a good thing because Sejanus is already not looking too great. But we don't got a lot of time to focus on that because they start singing the anthem. And finally get the iconic "Ladies and gentlemen, let the 10th annual Hunger Games begin." They cut to the arena and it's this beautiful wide shot at first, but nobody's paying attention to the cornucopia or the tributes around the cornucopia. No, everybody is looking at Marcus, who is tied to a beam that is going across two other beams, just strung up there, hanging with his arms like this. The worst part is this kid isn't dead. No, he's hanging up there suffering for every single breath he is taking right now. He looks beat up. He looks bad. He looks like he would rather be dead. But no, of course the Capitol kept him alive, so technically Marcus is still there. Snow feels ill looking like this because it would be upsetting seeing any creature look like this. So Janus is the first one to act. He gets up, he goes to the front of the room and starts throwing some empty chairs that are up there, shaking with rage, calling everybody in that room monsters, and he is absolutely correct. And then he leaves. And at that moment, the sound of the gong goes off and all the tributes start running. Lucy Gray is instantly running towards the edge of the arena to get out of the melee. Most people actually aren't running to the cornucopia at all. They are just trying to get away from the fighting. Even the tributes from District 4 and 7 that have kind of paired up, the boy from 7, both from 4, both just run away from the cornucopia as well as soon as they get some weapons. Leaving Reaper just standing there with a pitchfork and a long knife, just looking for somebody to fight, but nobody's there. I know the Hunger Games are a sad thing. It's just a little funny. It's a little funny. It's a fictional story. I wouldn't be laughing if these were real things, but like, you get your weapons, you're like, all right, I'm gonna fight some people. Oh no, where'd everybody go? Lucky takes this time now to let everybody know that's watching at home that they can still place bets if they want to on the games. They just have to call the number. Yeah. And now, with every other tribute out of sight, Marcus becomes the sole focus of the games. Yeah, the Capitol and all of Panem is simply watching a young boy suffer and simply try to live a little longer. Honestly, at this point, I don't even know if he's trying to live. The next thing that actually happens is the girl from 7 comes out of some of the rubble and goes over to the beams that Marcus is on and climbs up one of them with the axe she has. And she makes this look easy because she's from District 7. She then crosses the beam, gets to where Marcus is, leans down and whispers something into his ear. We see him nod and then she has to hit him in the neck with her axe 3 times for him to finally stop breathing. Marcus has finally been put out of his misery. The District 7 girl's mentor, meanwhile, is crying out, "Yeah, that's my girl, look at her go!" Like she just did something really cool and not just mercy killed this guy. That guy, I wish. Anyways, he's celebrating this. Like, it's this really cool, epic thing that happened. And yes, it's very nice of her to go up there and do that for him, but I don't know why we're celebrating like that. It's the Capitol, that's why. But her mentor decides that right now is a good time to test out the sponsorship gift thing and sends in a water drone for her. It carries the bottle of water and flies right past her, smashing into the wall. So he cries out that that's unfair, but sends her another. This time she grabs it and she actually has some water. Time starts to pass pretty slow for everybody at this point because normally at the start of the games you have the bloodbath and you can probably replay that. I don't know how these people work. It's also early in the game, so you can probably go over all that information, and also you normally have cameras in the later games to see where everybody is, but with all these new tunnels and routes opening up, they didn't have time to actually get cameras down there. Yes, for the movies, they decided to get cameras down there, but I honestly think it would have been really, really interesting if we just didn't see Lucy Gray much in the arena like we do in the book. Like, we just get hints of her experience in the arena, and I kind of wish we got that in the movie. I think it would have been good, but I also realized that having the cameras and stuff like that works better for the movie. Eventually, all our mentors and everybody that is in Heavensby's Hall gets a break for lunch. Afterward, Dr. Gall gets on for an interview, and she's going over that, yes, there wasn't a bloodbath, but we've already had so many tributes die before the Hunger Games even started, so the Hunger Games are still a success. Lucky is wondering if the tunnels mean they will never see some of the tributes again, but Dr. Gall assures them that they will poke their heads back out when they need something. And Lucky, the first ever host of the Hunger Games, is now getting a little worried on how long these games could go on, because with the food and everything they can send in, Dr. Gall says these games could go on indefinitely. Snow makes a little comment to Lisa Strata, who's sitting next to him, and is like, I almost feel bad for him, and she's like, don't, they deserve each other. See, even she realizes that the host, the person that signs up to host the Hunger Games, is no better than somebody who has their hands in making the Hunger Games. And they make it all the way to dinner that evening with no further events in the arena. After dinner, they do see the District 3 tributes come in to examine the drone that fell on the ground. They grab it and take it back in. after eventually getting one of them to start flashing one of its lights again. And of course, since they got out of the tunnels for a little bit, their mentors decided this was a good time to send them some food. But of course, once they get the food, the drone, they head back into the tunnels straight away to hide. Then a little later, Reaper comes out carrying Dill and lays her out in a nice sunny spot of the arena. Dill is the girl from District 11. But she is probably not long for this world. She is not looking like she's in the best of shape. And meanwhile, Clemencia is refusing to send anything to Reaper because he hasn't done anything yet, in her words. Once the water gets there for Dill, though, a boy comes running out of the tunnel, grabs the water, and runs back into a tunnel. This is the boy from District 7. As the sun is beginning to fully set now, we witness Dill's body have one last bout of coughing, and then she convulses, and, Dill is no longer with us. With the sun fully set, they can't even see what's going on in the arena because they didn't think to put lights in there or cameras that can see in the dark or anything like that, so they just kind of send everybody home. When he gets home, he smells the scent of jasmine tea, which is odd because that's the tea they get out when they have visitors over to look like they're still a productive capital family. And who would be over at this hour? Well, it actually ends up being Ma Plinth. See, she's over here because she can't find Sejanus. He ran off after Marcus was shown on the screen, and we never saw him again today, apparently, not even his mother. Snow tells her what happened at the academy today, but assures her he was probably just blowing off some steam and he'll show up at any point now. But she knows this is not like her son. Tigris is asking if there's anywhere else he could have gone, but he doesn't really have any other friends besides Snow. And Corio over here is like, man, what a sad life, having no friends. Because he's not Sejanus's friend. Eventually, after many not-so-subtle hints from Grandmam, Ma Plinth gets the message that it's time for her to go and it's very late, too late for company to be over at somebody's house that they don't know that well. But before she gets out of the living room where the TV is, they see a figure go over to where Marcus's body is laying on the ground because the girl from District 7 did cut him down from there. Corio just assumes it's Reaper over there for some reason, he doesn't really know why, but Ma Plinth has frozen in her place. Again, he's not thinking anything of this, so he just asks Ma Plinth if she's ready to go to her car because he's walking her out there, of course. He is a gentleman, telling her that he's sure Sejanus will be home by the time she gets there, and she goes, I know where my boy is. He's right there on screen. Yes, Sejanus is the one standing over Marcus right now. Sejanus Plinth is in the arena. They watch as Sejanus flips over Marcus's body and then starts sprinkling something over it. And these capital people are asking, what the hell is he doing right now? And Ma explains he's sprinkling breadcrumbs over him so Marcus can take them on his journey. Grandmam's like, what journey are you talking about? He's dead. That boy is dead. He's not going anywhere. Oh my gosh, Grandmam. Ma's like, it's just a normal funeral thing we do back in 2. Snow over here is like, wow, I wonder how much bread they're wasting on people who are dead when people are apparently starving in the districts and they're just wasting bread. Mind you, he's crumbling like a little bit of bread on him. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal, is what I'm saying. Then they get a call from Dr. Gall. This better be good news, right? She's telling both of them to get over there right now. On their journey over to the arena where Dr. Gall is right now, Ma is telling him all about their journey from District 2 to here and how everybody hates them in 2 and most people hate them in the capital. And he's like, oh my word, I do not care, woman. He doesn't say this out loud. He acts very nice out loud, but in his brain he's like, I do not care, woman. You should just be happy you're in District Capital. You're in the capital. He doesn't honestly know why he's coming with her to get Sejanus out of the arena because he figures they'll use his mother to get Sejanus out, but who knows? But plot twist, when they get there, he's the one going into the arena to get Sejanus, and they're not going to send peacekeepers in because they don't want Sejanus to bolt. I was asking the peacekeepers on the way into the arena, what if he can't convince Sejanus to come with him out of the arena? Peacekeepers are like, we were just told for you to stay in there until the mission is accomplished, so aka if you don't get Sejanus out, you're dead. They do tell him not to worry though, because they do got his back in the arena and he'll get Sejanus out and it'll be fine. Like if any tributes come after him, they'll shoot at them to scare them off. Everything's gonna be fine. The peacekeepers will help him out. Once he's actually in the arena and walking there alone, he notices how cold it is and he thinks about Lucy Gray and how she might be cuddling up to Jessup for warmth. And that makes him feel not nice feelings. Boy, she's just trying to live. Finally, he gets over to Sejanus and announces himself very calmly. Of course, he's trying to convince him to get out of this arena right now, and he's like, your mother's out there. Hey, just come on out, buddy. It's fine. But he's still convinced he's gonna stay here in this arena. And he's like, oh, my poor mother. I mean, my dad will buy their way out of this whole situation, and I mean, they'll probably buy you off because you came in here to help me, so that's good for you, I guess. All Snow is thinking, yeah, buy away. But right now, please get out of this arena, Sejanus. Snow starts to sense that there might be some other tributes that are watching this whole conversation go down right now, and he is kicking it into high gear. But Sejanus, meanwhile, wants to fill him in on why he's in the arena. See, he wants to make a statement by dying in here, and Snow has to point out that if he dies in here, they will never show it. They will just say he died of the flu. It will not make a statement. It will do nothing to help these tributes. What will help these tributes is if he gets out of here and uses all the money he'll have one day from his father's inheritance to help them later on. But he will do nothing for them if he dies here. Then he gets a little closer to Sejanus and he's like, hey, buddy, we're being surrounded right now. We need to go. Because if we don't, we're going to end up fighting the tributes instead of fighting for them. So Janus is like, okay, I'll go, but we're not leaving Marcus, my dead friend. So they pick up Marcus and they start going out of the arena. Once they get close to the barricade, though, tributes pop out and they have to drop Marcus to fight them off. See, at one point, Bobbin, one of the tributes, come over and actually slices Choreo on the arm with a knife. And Choreo's only defense is a 2x4, so he picks it up and smacks Bobbin on the head. Bobbin's down, Bobbin's out of the way, but no, Choreo's not done. He repeatedly smacks Bobbin's head in with a 2x4. Sejanus is now the one telling Choreo, they gotta go, they gotta get out of here. So Snow goes back to pick up Marcus's body because he figures they're still carrying this thing out of here, and Sejanus is like, no, leave it, just run. But now the tributes from District 4 are chasing them, as well as the boy tribute from District 7. Coral on the board? Hey, there's Coral. This is the girl tribute from 4, she's pretty important. They're running through this little labyrinth to get out of the arena at this point because of all the rubble that's around. The tributes are chasing them. They're really hoping to catch up and kill them right now, but all that ends up happening is they get out with Sejanus just getting a nice cut on the back. Snow is fuming once they're safe, though, because there was no protective gunfire, anything from the peacekeepers. But we learn that Dr. Gall was the one to tell them to not help them out at all, basically to disturb the games as little as possible. Peacekeepers are like, yeah, it's not our fault that Dr. Gall found you expendable. Ouch. So Janus starts apologizing to Snow, saying, I'm so sorry, Choreo. And Coriolanus over here is ticked off that this dude is using his nickname because they are not that close. That's only something for his close personal friends to use, not Sejanus, not a district boy. He thinks to himself that if he had the energy right now, he would strangle him, but he does not. So he just lets it roll off his back. An ambulance eventually arrives, it collects them both. They start working on Sejanus first because he has more blood flowing out of him right now, and they get brought to the Citadel lab because they don't really want the normal hospital people to know that these two were just in the arena tonight. And eventually Dr. Gall shows up in the hospital asking him what it was like in the arena. He tells her the truth, that it was terrifying. She's like, oh good. I also think that one moment where you smashed that kid's head into a pulp was a really transformative moment for you, like real character growth moment. This woman's insane. And starts going on about how what happened in the arena was just humanity undressed, and if they didn't have anybody controlling them, people would just go around killing each other all the time. Then she's like, okay, yeah, can you just write a paper now about the value of control and what sort of social contract is required to survive? Then he finally gets home and passes out because that boy is tired. He has to hurry to get to the academy the next morning, and Tigress tells him to just take some money and pay for the trolley today. So he does get there on time, but once he gets there, people are asking him what happened because he fell a few times in the arena. He's looking a little rough and he's like, yeah, I just crashed my bike. Whoops. And then people actually look at the screen and notice that Marcus's body is gone and is wondering what happened there. I don't know, Snow, what happened there? Then Flickerman has to get on and give some excuse for why Bobbin was murdered in the middle of the night, and they have no footage on that whatsoever. Bobbin's mentor gets up and she's like, okay, why is there no footage about this? I smell something fishy and I would like to see that footage, but that girl has never seen that footage. Oh, sorry, Bobbin. But Flickerman just continues on because now they've got a big surprise for the remaining mentors. He calls Sejanus up and is asking what happened to his face because also he looks rough, and Sejanus says, I crashed my bike. Choreo's like, great, yeah, 2 bike-related incidents is totally not suspicious at all. But Sejanus has some pretty big news to share. See, his daddy bought him out of some trouble already, because now this is where the plinth prize is introduced. Because now the mentor of the winning tribute will now get a prize that is equal to the scholarship of a full ride to the capital university. Coriolanus is now sitting here wondering if his dad is going to try to buy his silence. I mean, like, it would be pretty cool if he did. But he can't focus on that right now because he needs to focus on making sure Lucy Gray survives. The first thing that happens is a girl from District 5 comes out of the bleachers and is sent some food, but then the main pack of tributes, Coral, her district partner, and the boy from 7, kill her. Boop. And then just as all the students are about to go home for the day, Lucy Gray makes her first appearance on the camera. But Jessup isn't with her, and Lisa Strata instantly knows that's weird because they wouldn't separate like this. Jessup comes running out of the same tunnel that Lucy Gray came running out of. Neither of the mentors can figure out what's going on, but when the cameras zoom in on Jessup, it is clear he is not doing well. He looks very ill. He's starting to wonder if she poisoned Jessup, but that is quickly proven wrong when he sees there's foam on his mouth. Jessup clearly has rabies. Now I will say I don't think rabies in real life presents in humans with foam on the mouth, but like they got mutt animals there, so maybe it does in this world. See, rabies did actually happen to come back in the capital during the war because people weren't concerned about getting their animals vaccinated when they couldn't eat, and it eventually spread to humans, so he's seen it many times before, and there was ads all over the place for it. The only creature that really carries rabies anymore in the capital are rats. And that's why there's rat poison everywhere. So, unless you make people sleep outside in the zoo where rats can bite them, you don't really have to worry about it. They're both feeling sorry for Jessup because this is a horrible way to go, but then he starts getting concerned for Lucy Gray because Jessup starts running after her. She ends up traversing a bit of the arena that has become kind of an obstacle course after the explosions and gets to higher ground away from him. Once she's up high enough, she ends up just stopping there, hoping that she's far enough away. While Jessup is trying to figure out why she's running away from him, Snow uses this time to send her a water bottle. This doesn't go as planned though, because the water bottle ends up crashing into the side of the arena, spraying water everywhere. And this really freaks Jessup out. It sends him into a fit of agitation and he starts running towards Lucy Gray again with a frantic speed. Luckily though, this sparks Snow's memory that people with rabies are hydrophobic. They have a fear of water because they're not able to swallow as well once they have rabies, or really at all at a certain point. So seeing water panics them and their brain's already not in the right place. So it can cause reactions like this. Snow is about to send a bunch of water to Lucy Gray to try to save her and get Jessup to get away from her, but Lisa Strata stops him before he does that and says, "No, let me do it. He's my tribute." He's telling her that she doesn't have to, but she's like, "No, I will. Save your gifts for Lucy Gray later in the games." She ends up sending all this water in. It scares Jessup, causing him to fall from quite a high height, resulting in him now being gravely injured, but still alive for the time being. Lucy Gray runs down to him, going down there to comfort him in the last moments of his life, and Lisa Strata, meanwhile, is sending the food that she would have been sending to Jessup if he would have made it for her to Lucy Gray because he is technically still alive, so she can still technically send sponsored gifts into the arena. Again, allowing Snow to hold his gifts for Lucy Gray till later in the game if she still needs them. Once Jessup has passed, she gathers all the food into random pockets in her skirt and then runs back into a tunnel as Reaper appears back on camera. He does take full advantage of the water bottles that are around Jessup and takes some for himself. Lisa Strata goes over to Flickerman to give her closing interview, and she wants to make sure everybody knows that the rabies did not come from the districts. It came from the rats in the capital. Jessup was bitten in the capital. And she also wants them to know that Jessup protected her during the bombing, because that's who he was at heart, a protector. Lucky Flickerman's like, "Oh, like a dog, a very good dog." And she's like, "No, like a person." With Jessup's passing, that means we have 10 tributes left. All the mentors are once again sent home that night, and when he gets there, he finally has some time to talk to Tigress. But he doesn't want to tell her about anything that happened in the arena, so he doesn't put her in any more danger than she already is, knowing the stuff that she already does. But she assures him she already knows most of that story from his clothes. She was the one who took them to repair them. And then she has to bring up something not so pleasant on her end that she wasn't planning on sharing with him until the Hunger Games were over, but she got the tax bill for the apartment, and it is equivalent to a year's worth of her income. And they've been given 6 weeks to get it. Then the next day, the first thing we see in the Hunger Games is the girl from District 7 getting plenty of food from her mentor as she sits up there on the beam. Reaper comes out a little later, goes over to her, points up at the sun, then points back at her. They have a little conversation. They seem to barter a little bit. Then he goes off and rips a part of the Capitol flag off the wall. And the Capitol citizens are furious about this. They are more furious about this than anything else that has happened in the game so far. Yeah, the flag. But anyways, he drags the part of the flag he cut off and throws it up to her on the beam. So she'll have some protection from the sun because she is clearly badly sunburned, especially on her face right now. And then after she gets the part of the flag to protect herself, she throws down some of her food to him. That all doesn't really matter though, because later that day, our pack of 3, led by Coral, go over to her, and Coral and her district partner end up climbing up the beams, going up there. Lamina is trying to fight them off for as long as she can, but eventually she is killed. She did manage to land a couple of good hits on the boy from 4, but that was not enough to save her life. Then the 2 tributes from 4, they're clearly frustrated, but they go back down. The boy goes over to high-five Tanner, but while he does that, Coral comes from behind and stabs him. So both our tributes from District 7 are now gone just like that. We are now down to 8 tributes. No one really knows how to react to that, so we'll just jump to the next thing that happens that day. Treach comes out, one of the tributes, to get some food and runs back into the tunnel. Then Tessie, the girl from District 13, comes out to get some food and also grabs one of the other fallen drones in the arena and runs back into the tunnel. Later, Reaper comes out and he's surprised to see all the extra bodies around, ends up going around gathering them all up and putting them in one location. The only person he doesn't carry to that location is Jessup. He just leaves him there, probably scared to contract his rabies. Then he goes over and cuts a second piece of the flag off of the wall. And again, the Capitol citizens are furious. They're even more outraged right now. And he brings that piece of flag over and drapes it over the fallen tributes. Suzanne, I cannot handle how she writes, especially both of the boys we've seen from District 11 so far. Oh, they are always such sweethearts. I know he has the insane thing he says before the games, but you can just tell they truly care about people, and they are just... Thresh was clearly a protector. Reaper clearly has so much respect for these people and wants to get revenge for them and show them that they matter when they've fallen, and does it on live TV, knowing he may be making his odds worse right now. They're so sweet. I can't. After all the bodies are covered, he goes back into the stands to hide again. And Clemencia has still sent him nothing. Once it starts to get dark again, they're all sent home. Snow stops by the Citadel so they can check on his arm there. When he gets there, he can just tell there's kind of a different, weird vibe going on in the lab right now. But all he can really pick up on is people mentioning the arena and the games, but he's just left wondering what they're actually talking about. Dr. Gall comes over, checks on him, tells him to keep the stitches in for a little longer, and then lets him know that his classmate that lost both of his legs actually passed away, and they will be announcing that tomorrow. This classmate is the president's son, so that adds some extra oomph to that death. Oh, weird sentence. Okay. She just wanted to inform Snow so they could at least have somebody they could interview after they announced that would have some prepared wise words and not just rambling like she would expect from most of the students after finding out that news. Mentions that it's going to be strange to announce it during the games because it's going to feel like a district victory. And yes, she knows that, but she also has repercussions planned. And mentions that his girl, Lucy Gray, gave him the idea. After this, he leaves Dr. Gall, gets to the elevator, and sees 2 lab techs getting onto the elevator with a giant thing of those colorful snakes. But they get held up because they realize they forgot something, so they wheel the snakes back out of the elevator. He's asking about them, and they're just like, oh, we're just moving them. We're moving them. Oh, but then he starts to put it together that Dr. Gall got an idea from Lucy Gray, and what did Lucy Gray do at the very start of these games? She put a snake down somebody's dress, and now there's these snakes going out, they're getting moved somewhere, and there's been people talking about the arena and the games while he's been here, and there's just been this weird vibe, so could these snakes be going into the arena? He has no clue what they would do let loose in the arena. He knows they ignored him and went after Clemencio in the small enclosure, but will they seek people out once they're in there? Will they seek out Lucy Gray once they're in there? He starts thinking about Lucy Gray's screams, and then before he can think about what he is doing right now, he grabs the handkerchief that he dried her tears with and drops it in the snake pit, watches it completely disappear from sight, and gets on the elevator and leaves. He is instantly filled with regret, because if this is ever found out, it could be seen as cheating and could ruin his entire life. But he's calming himself down, being like, look, Lucy Gray may never see these snakes, they may not be going to the arena, they may just be moving them. It's all gonna be fine. And honestly, they'll probably never even find the handkerchief, and it's just a random handkerchief. They can't trace it back to me. So all in all, it's gonna be fine. Either way, it'll be fine. But with all this weighing on him and his chance of winning the Hunger Games slipping away from him, it feels like he decides now's the time to visit the plinths and see if maybe he can get that money, that hush money from them. When he gets there, he's led to the kitchen, which is a very abnormal place for you to be led when you're in the Capitol going to somebody's house to visit them, but he's led to the kitchen. Mom makes sure to feed him some good food, and then he's taken up to Strabo's plinth's office. Strabo thanks him for what he did, and he mentions that he knew Snow's father and also his mother, and is wondering if Snow is like his mother. He's like, I guess kind of. I mean, I do believe, like her, that good fortune should be repaid. Nudge, nudge, buddy. But then he's just thanked again for saving Sejanus and is told to get out. He was offered no money. He was ready to kind of deny it at first and be like, no, that's too much. I really don't need that, and then accept it gracefully, but the money was never offered. So he's just left to go home and distract himself by writing the paper for Dr. Gall on what would happen if no one was in control of humanity. And he decides that at the heart of the problem, things spiral so far out of control sometimes because there's no law. There's nobody controlling the law. And controlling the law means enforcing the law. And obviously, the only entity capable of this at this time for them is the Capitol. So of course the Capitol has to be in charge, and they have to do anything to stay in charge. He stays up late once again writing this paper, and then the next day he's off to the academy to continue being a mentor for the Hunger Games. The only thing that's changed on the screen this morning is that Jessup is now with the rest of the bodies. Most likely Reaper dragged him over there. But in the morning, nothing is really happening in the game, so they cut to footage of the crowds outside of the games. And they show the people wearing different fan clubs, t-shirts, stuff like that. They show dogs dressed as the tributes. And people also are wearing shirts with pictures of their favorite mentor on it. And then around mid-morning, Wovi finally comes out of the tunnels for the first time. She is the girl from, I don't know actually, District 8, I want to say? I could be wrong. Her mentor is instantly sending her food and water. She grabs it. She looks a little dazed and confused, but they're thinking maybe she's just hungry, she hasn't had water. She's been in those tunnels for a while now. She takes the cap off the water, drinks some, and then she just sits against a wall. And then everybody just watches as a thin stream of silver liquid just trickles out of the side of her mouth. And then she goes still. No one knows what happened to her. They don't accept that she's dead for quite a bit. But Snow has a decent idea of what happened to her because it looks like Wovi was poisoned. Reaper, of course, is the one to find her. He goes over there, looks kind of suspicious on what happened because this doesn't look like a natural death, but just picks her up and carries her over to the rest of the bodies. Then, after lunch, which Snow barely eats any of it because it's lima beans, and we know he hates lima beans because he had so many of them during the war, Dr. Gall comes in to announce that Gaius Bean is dead. And right now, to show the districts what happens when you mess with the Capitol, they cut back to the arena, where Treach is running out of the tunnels. He's running straight at the District 3 tributes who are poking around at something. Again, no one in the audience knows what's going on right now, but Snow knows. He had convinced himself these snakes weren't gonna show up, but these snakes are here. And when the snakes shoot out of the tunnels, Clemencia lets out a blood-curdling scream because she's got a lot of trauma related to those things. Corio is the one to jump out of his chair, wrap his arms around her, and tell her that the snakes are not here, they're in the arena. She is safe. She calms down, but he stays holding on to her to make sure she doesn't make any mistakes right now. The District 3 tributes were too slow to act and end up getting bitten by the snakes. 1, 2, ooh, almost 3, sorry. As Dr. Gall begins to explain what the snakes are, they're her mutations that she's made in the lab. By the time Treach and Reaper have made their way to higher ground, they hear a scream coming out of the tunnels. Snow thinks it's Lucy Gray, but it turns out to be Mizzen and Coral, the tributes from District 4. And they are running out of those tunnels. Coral ends up getting bitten as her and Mizzen are climbing to get to higher ground. And then everybody in the auditorium starts to shush each other, because we start to hear Lucy Gray singing. She's walking backwards out of the tunnel, singing to the snakes, and they seem to be mesmerized by this melody, as they just follow her. Her voice begins to get clearer as she gets closer to a mic, and it seems like she is prepping herself for one final performance. The snakes begin to crawl over her feet, but none of them are biting her. She ends up spreading out her dress and sitting down on the ground, and they just start swarming all over it, making a dress made out of these rainbow snakes. See, Snow actually never told Lucy Gray about these snakes because the night that he was gonna do that, her problem seemed way worse, so he didn't think he needed to mention them. And now he really regrets doing that. But Lucy Gray continues to sing her song, which we now know is the funeral song in District 12. She is singing her own funeral song, her own ballad. Luckily, this is making it look like the snakes are just impressed by her voice, and not that they already know her scent. Meanwhile, some of the other tributes are making their way to safety, while all the snakes are focused on her. Snow realizes at this moment that the cameras have been on him for a while, and he makes sure to school his face right now so he doesn't give off any emotions that Dr. Gall can play off of and make a story out of. Then Flickerman tells Dr. Gall to take a bow because this has been quite the performance today. But Corio is just wondering if she thinks that her snakes are acting like this because of Lucy Gray singing or because he did something. And with all the snake drama dying down, he's now called up to give a speech about their fallen classmate since he was the one warned the night before. But that's not made clear to the actual public. It's just like, we know that. Anyways, Coriolanus actually decides to just go ahead and stay in Heavenspeed Hall as most of the other mentors do that night because the games are getting very close to being over with 4 tributes left. Then the next day, like normal, Lucy Gray, nowhere to be seen. But Treach is out, so he's getting more food sent to him by his mentor, and Reaper is still not eating any of the food that is coming in by the drones in some form of protest. He's taking the water because he knows he needs that to survive, but he ain't eating their food, and He's standing on business. I respect that. He really only leaves where he's hiding up in the press box to go and tidy the morgue that he's made in the arena. Then Teslie from District 3 comes out and positions herself right under Mizzen, who is the male tribute from District 4 that is up on the beam right now where he ended up after the whole snake fiasco, and Teslie has brought a little drone with her. And all of a sudden, she flips a little switch and the thing is rising up into the air, and she's got it attached to a string, so it's just kind of floating right below Mizzen. Everyone's wondering what's going on right now because this thing isn't attacking him, it's just sitting there threateningly, like the drone's just like, ooh, I'm gonna get you. But the thing is, Mizzen has drones coming in right now with more food, more water for him, and now those drones won't stop targeting him. Even after they drop off the food to him, they just keep flying back. And at first it's funny, and it's kind of funny, and then it's not so funny, and then Mizzen is pushed off the beam and dies, and it's really not funny. Meanwhile, while Teslie was watching all of that happen, Treach was sneaking up behind her and kills her with an axe to the back. So, my tribute count is off. Isn't that funny? Okay, because we got Reaper, Treach, and Lucy Gray. I'm sorry about my mistakes. Anyways, now only 3 tributes are left in the arena. It's Lucy Gray, Treach, and Reaper. I didn't put Treach up there because we don't really talk about him, and there's not many tributes that I feel like are super important to the story, but Reaper is one, so that's why he's here. Sorry, Treach. This leaves Snow to start thinking about how he's gonna start convincing everybody in the capital that Lucy Gray isn't really from the districts. You know, she's Cuffy. They're not district citizens, so she can come live in the capital with him in a little cage in the penthouse. Around noon that day, Lucy Gray makes her very first appearance. She heads out of the tunnels and goes over to the puddle that Reaper has been drinking out of pretty commonly and washes her face there. The drones come, she gets all the gifts in her skirt again, but before she runs back into the tunnel, she goes over to Reaper's morgue to figure out how many tributes are actually left alive. The mentors, seeing this, start to joke about maybe they should actually put it up on the scoreboard next year, and some people are like, actually, that's not a bad idea. Suddenly, though, Lucy Gray drops her skirt down, dropping most of the food she was just given, and is running towards the tunnel again because all of a sudden Treach is chasing after her. As she's just about to slip away, Treach grabs her wrist and is about to kill her with an axe when she avoids it by going up close to him and basically hugging him. But we see Treach's eyes widen in horror because Lucy Gray kept one of her snake friends, and that snake is currently biting Treach, the very poisonous snake. Lucy Gray knows she is not out of the games yet and is now frantically looking around for Reaper, but he is still up in the stands. Boop. She decides she has some time, she goes back to her food and ends up spreading out a feast on her skirt. Snow, meanwhile, is wondering if he's trying to make her think about the picnics they had in the zoo, and is just daydreaming about the life they can have in the capital together once she's out of here. By lunchtime, nobody has moved. Once they get back from lunch, Lucy Gray decides to go over to Treach's body and start moving it, but this activates Reaper, and he's like, oh no, nobody else is moving the dead bodies, that's my job. So he starts coming down, and Lucy Gray runs into a tunnel. Reaper doesn't chase her, he just picks up Treach and carries him to the rest of the dead tributes, and then calmly makes his way back to the stands. A little later, Lucy Gray runs out of the tunnel, snatches part of the flag off of the fallen tributes, and runs back into the tunnel. Hollering while she does all this. This gets Reaper's attention. He comes down, runs over, grabs the flag, puts the flag back on the fallen tributes. Once he's heading back to the stands, Lucy Gray darts out again, grabs another piece of the flag, and starts running around with it this time. By the time Reaper notices, she has about 50 yards on him. She then drops it in the middle of the arena and flees to the stands. Reaper is angry at this point, but he's still just focused on covering these bodies with this flag, respecting the dead, kind of. And Lucy Gray, yes, is kind of disrespecting the dead, but she's just trying to win the Hunger Games, okay? Don't blame her, blame the Capitol. Reaper is starting not to look so great now, and this is when it clicks that Lucy Gray is trying to outrun Reaper right now. See, he hasn't been eating any food, really, or anything like that. Now, she may not know that, but she does see that this man is already profusely sweating at this point. Her plan works, though, because Reaper is staggering over to his puddle and is now drinking out of it. He drinks out of it until there's just muddy sludge at the bottom. Then he sits back, gets a funny look on his face, and starts vomiting. But he is still focused on his task of getting this flag back over the fallen tributes. So he is just crawling over to them with this flag. He barely makes it there when he collapses right beside Treach, basically in a perfect line with them. But no one knows if he's truly dead. They don't have a monitor in any of the tributes like they do in the games that we see so far. It takes them about a half an hour to confirm this because Lucy Gray finally climbs down from the stands and checks his pulse. Then she closes his eyes and arranges the flag over the fallen tributes. This right here is what convinces everybody that Reaper is dead, and Lucy Gray is now the winner of the 10th annual Hunger Games. Lucky Flickerman is now jumping up and down over here declaring Lucy Gray and Coriolanus Snow the winners of the 10th annual Hunger Games together because, you know, he played just as big of a role in this as she did, right? Right. His classmates all come over, they lift him up in the air in his chair that he's sitting in, and then he does one final interview. They go to the dining hall, he's sitting in a place of honor, just enjoying this time, enjoying the food, and then Satyria comes over. Because he's wanted in the high biology lab, and she's pretty sure that they have Lucy Gray there for him. He goes over there so excited to see Lucy Gray once again, to actually hug her, embrace her, maybe even kiss her, he doesn't know, but when he gets there, he's greeted with Dean Highbottom. Yeah, that's not Lucy Gray. Who is asking him to close the door behind him. On the desk in front of Dean Highbottom are 3 things: an Academy napkin, stained with grape juice, his mother's silver compact, and the handkerchief he put in the snake tank that are marked with his father's initials. The napkin is from when he took food to Lucy Gray in the zoo. They consider that cheating as well, but really they don't need that when you have the compact and the frickin' handkerchief with his father's initials. This meeting maybe lasts 5 minutes, and he heads straight over to the Peacekeeper office. And now we cut to the train with Coriolanus Snow on his way to District 12. See, he requested to go there. They were gonna put him in like District 8, somewhere around there, but he was like, no, put me in 12. Luckily, most of these Peacekeepers, they have a full-time job. They're not keeping up with the Hunger Games. They didn't even bat an eye at it. Did you hear that thunder? Anyways. These Peacekeepers have no clue why this boy wants to go to 12, so they're like, whatever. They're not batting a single eye. While he sits on this train, he just keeps hearing over and over and over again what Dean Highbottom said to him at the end of their little meeting. Hear that? It's the sound of snow falling. Because he's not getting the Plinth Prize anymore. He's not getting anywhere close to that university. When you sign up to be a Peacekeeper, you sign up for 20 years. His life is basically over at this point. The life he wanted is over. His family is going to have to move out of their nice fancy apartment, move into a lower class area of the capital, and he's very upset. They're not gonna make any of this known to the public at all, any of this cheating, because they want the games to seem fair. And when Snow asks what he's supposed to tell people when they ask why he's becoming a Peacekeeper when he just won the Plinth Prize, Dean Highbottom's like, just tell them that your time as a mentor made it clear to you that you needed to be a Peacekeeper. I don't care what you tell them. At this point, if you haven't caught on, he's kind of replaying this whole meeting for us right now. And Snow asked him during this meeting why he hates him so much. I thought you were friends with my father. And Dean Highbottom's like, yeah, I thought I was friends with your father too, but turns out he just liked me because he could use me. And as we know, at the end of this meeting, Snow didn't really have any fight left in him, and he ran straight over to become a Peacekeeper. After he was enlisted, he was told he wouldn't be leaving till tomorrow, so he tries to run to the Citadel to beg Dr. Gall to help him out of this, but she refuses to even see him. He ends up having to beg one of the guards to just let him leave the paper he had written for Dr. Gall there so she can read it later. And of course, when he gets brought back to the apartment, he's greeted with these horns and cheers and all that fun stuff, and then he has to tell them what happened, and there's no more cheering from that apartment. And after all those unfun memories, he's now just left to think about what their classmates will do with their future, unlike him, because he doesn't have one anymore. And then shockingly, he's actually concerned about Lucy Gray's well-being because he has enough brain to be like, maybe the Capitol will harm her because she was in on all of this, kind of, and what if I never see Lucy Gray again and they killed her anyways? But he eventually calms himself down because the Capitol's best strategy is just to let her go back to District 12. Eventually, the train finally gets to District 12, and after a long hike, he makes it to the base, where he is the only new male Peacekeeper there. So he's led to a bunk room that already has 2 bunks made up. He claims the top bunk, goes and takes his shower, gets into some new clean fatigues, and unpacks his duffel with the few belongings he was allowed to bring. Throughout his first day here, he's actually learning that a lot of the Peacekeepers here aren't from the Capitol. A lot of them are district-born. Obviously not District 12, because that causes a whole slew of issues if you're policing people in your own district, but districts like 7, 8, anybody who's not District 12 can come to District 12 and work there. The next morning, he starts his training, which is really just designed to bring all new troops up to an acceptable level of fitness. Basically, what his life is now is training, eating, cleaning, and sleeping. That's it. He's not even allowed to go off the base at all yet, so he's just still left to think about Lucy Gray and if she's even here. Even though he's in District 12, he still can't get to her. At the end of this already really bad week for Snow, he receives a letter from Tigress that makes matters even worse, because her situation and Graham M's situation is not good. And he starts to really think about what the rest of his life is going to be like here in 12 with no family, no kids, because when you're a Peacekeeper, you can't get married, you can't have kids. I'm sure many of them do, though. He's debating on whether it would be better to die quickly, and then a familiar voice asks if the bunk below his is taken. Sejanus Plinth just showed up in District 12 as the newest peacekeeper. Corio has never been so happy to see Sejanus. He flings himself at him. Now, he wasn't expecting a warm welcome from Snow at all, honestly, because he kind of thinks he's part of the reason that Snow is here, but he's not. And the reason Sejanus is here, well, his dad had to make a deal with the board that they would build a whole new gymnasium for them. It was either his son gets sent to be a peacekeeper or he dies, so his son's now a peacekeeper. His dad also worked it out, so both Snow and Sejanus both actually got to graduate. Snow didn't think he even had a diploma from the academy. Sejanus is able to fill Corio in on the fact that most people that know him pity him right now because they don't really know what happened. They just know he did something wrong, but they don't really think he deserved this. Then Snow asks the very important question of if Sejanus knows anything about Lucy Gray. He hasn't heard anything, so it's very likely that Lucy Gray has not been punished at all and was probably just sent home. He reveals to Sejanus what he was just thinking about before he came in this room, and he's like, why? Our lives have just begun, my friend. No capital looming over us, no Dr. Gall, no Dean Highbottom. We're kind of free here. Also, the girl of his dreams is in the same district as him. He'll be able to hang out with her. And we can't forget that Sejanus' ma is sending them some baked goods as they speak. So Corio just starts to fill Sejanus in on what life is like here. He explains it's mind-numbing, and Sejanus is like, good. Then their bunkmates, Smiley and Bug, walk into the room, introduce themselves to Sejanus, and they're like, hey, we heard that this band is playing at the Hop next week with some girl named Lucy that's from the capital. Yeah, Lucy Gray is gonna be at the Hop next weekend, and Snow will finally be allowed off base at that point. So it's now confirmed to him that Lucy Gray is alive and is right here in District 12 with him. Their whole group spends the next few days training, and then on Thursday they get this whole big package of baked goods from Ma. She sends one to Snow and Sejanus separately. They split them with Smiley and Bug in their bunk room, and they also put some aside to use for trading since they don't really have any money right now for being peacekeepers. It takes them a month to actually get paid anything. And finally, with the spare time he has, he writes a thank you note to Ma and also a letter to Tigress informing her about all the changes here. During this week, he does pick up a manual for the officer cadet test so he can possibly be an officer one day, and the only thing he really needs to study on are the rules and regulations of being a peacekeeper. He knows everything else. Now, of course, passing this test doesn't automatically make him an officer, but it does get him to start training to be an officer. And that right there would give him an actual shot to build his way back up into society. But the good vibes kind of get dampened a little bit because on Friday morning, Smiley and Bug come over and they're like, hey, a peacekeeper and two miners, like pickaxe miners, got killed in a explosion in the mines. The criminal investigation they did led to a family that has been known to be linked to other rebel causes. And that man is now going to be hung this afternoon, and Sejanus and Corio get the honor of being able to go to the hanging and as extra bodies, basically. So these two get in a van with the rest of the peacekeepers. They get to the infamous hanging tree that we all know and don't love. Because they don't have actual stockades or anything like that yet here. This tree is also filled with mockingjays and a lot of jabberjays as well. Corio and Sejanus end up positioned near the back, so they don't really have to do much. Again, they're just really extra bodies here. They're so new. What do we expect them to be? At the front of the line? No. They're hiding in the back just to be like a threatening force there. But his anxiety is just slowly building as more and more people show up. He just keeps imagining what would happen if the crowd actually decided to try something. But nobody in the crowd has guns, and they do. Eventually a few trucks roll up, some more peacekeepers get out, and then the mayor and his daughter Mayfair, the girl that Lucy Gray stuck a snake down the dress of. And then from the final vehicle, they bring out the man who is going to be hung today. They bring him up, they list out his crimes, and then a drum beat starts from the edge of the platform that they're on, and a woman from the crowd starts crying out, Arlo! Arlo starts shouting for her to run, Lil, run! And in the middle of him saying run, the trapdoor releases, snapping his neck. The jabberjays up in the trees pick up on his final words, saying, run, Lil, run! Run, Lil, just turning it into this haunted melody. He is getting so creeped out by this. He's on a borderline anxiety attack levels of anxiety right now and just barely keeps his composure. It does hit him though that this must be the show Lucy Gray was talking about. And then Snow, he looks up into that tree and he sees what he believes to be the first mockingjay he has ever seen, and he dislikes it on sight. Buddy, you're gonna love a mockingjay you meet later in your life. He snapped out of his thoughts though because he starts hearing bullets getting shot, and he's looking around in the crowd thinking that somebody is charging at them, but it ends up that some of the peacekeepers are just shooting at the birds in the trees. Then their major comes over and is just info dumping on how jabberjays were created for during the war. They were spies during the war because they couldn't tap all the trees in the woods to get listening devices in there to overhear the rebel plans, but then the rebels figured it out and started feeding the jabberjays false information. And that's why Jabberjays are seen as a shame on the Capitol and now just live out in the wild. But what ended up happening was that the Jabberjays mated with mockingbirds, and now there is the Mockingjay. On the way back to the base, these two are talking, and Sejanus is having some major regret right now, but he doesn't go any further into that, and Snow is like, oh, dang it, he's gonna start pulling shit like he did in the arena. They get back to the base. He finds that he has a letter from Pluribus Bell. The first bit of it is just confirming what Tigris had already told him, that Pluribus Bell was helping them all get back on their feet, helping them out during this time, but then he adds a interesting comment in there as well. And apparently close to the end of their time at the university, Dean Highbottom and his father were fighting a lot. And Dean Highbottom made a comment that it was all supposed to just be a joke, and he was just drunk when he said it. Corey over here, completely clueless, it's going right over his head, and he's like, I don't know why Dean Highbottom hates me. I don't know what they were arguing over, but it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. It was for university. It wouldn't have any consequences to the real world. Then even later that day, these two are mopping the floors in the base, and Sejanus is now asking Snow how he's helping kids in the Hunger Games if he's now just killing people in the districts. Corio's like, what did you think you would be doing here? And he admits that he thought he would be able to be a medic. Because honestly, he doesn't know if he would ever be able to kill anyone. Corio is over this conversation at this point, like he's over with any conversation he ever has with Sejanus, because Sejanus' actions led to him having to kill someone. He didn't have to kill Bobbin. Bobbin was knocked out after that first hit, but no, he brought that board down on Bobbin multiple times. But anyways, in his mind, Sejanus took the luxury of wondering if he would be capable of killing somebody. No, Snow, you already know that. You didn't have to kill that boy, and you did. You're fully capable of doing it by your own free will. But Snow acts like he's still interested in this conversation and is like, okay, why can't you just be a medic? And he has to explain it's because he's a really, really freaking good shot. And they're never gonna train somebody who's naturally good at shooting to be a medic. Corio's like, dude, just stop overthinking it. Just start missing some shots in practice, and then they won't think you're so good at it. They're all gonna die right here in District 12 anyway, so he might as well just follow his dreams of being a medic and just miss the freaking shots on purpose. And if that doesn't work for some reason, then slam his hand in a door. Mess it up enough where he can't really hold a gun. This brings an end to this conversation because Sejanus can tell he's kind of ticked off, and it's obvious that Sejanus wants to fight for these people, and Snow would gladly fight these people. Cut to Saturday now, after target practice. Snow is once again talking to the Major, and he's like, hey, what if instead of just normal target practice, we actually start going into the woods to shoot the birds to get rid of the frickin' Jabberjays, because he hates those birds so much. As well as Mockingjays. And the Major's like, actually, that's a decent plan. Let me talk to some people about that. Then finally we get to that night. They're cleaning up after dinner, and then they're going to the Hob to see Lucy Gray. Please get her back in the story. I'm sick of this kid. I'm sick of him. While his friends are all talking together on their walk over to the Hob, all he's thinking about is Lucy Gray and what he's gonna do to greet her. Maybe kiss her, maybe just talk. He doesn't know. Once in the Hob, they trade some of their treats away to get some alcohol, and then they go into the show and find some seats. They sit further back, so he's in a dark corner, basically, so Lucy Gray can't see him because he wants to be the one to make the first move, because he's a man. Once the sun is finally set, the band comes out, introduced by Maud Ivory. She calls out Tam Amber, Clark Carmaine, Barb Azar, and then lastly, Lucy Gray. She comes out with her usual charm, and after talking with the crowd for a little bit, she jumps into their first song. And the whole time, Snow obviously can't take his eyes off of her. As the show goes on, he does find some of the songs boring, some of them are exciting, but he also finds some of them kinda creepy because the Covey will just turn in on each other and build these beautiful harmonies, and that reminds him of Mockingjays, and he hates those birds. Again, Suzanne is slapping you in the face with compares. He just hates birds throughout this whole book, I swear. And Lucy Gray Baird is literally her name. Yes, it's not bird, but it's similar enough, and she references a lot of birds. She likes birds. She is kind of like a bird. But Snow hates them. And that's because he can't control them. And to finish off the show, she sings the song that she sang in The Reaping. Then Maud Ivory comes around with a little basket to collect any donations that anybody can give them for their performance tonight. Our little group throws the coins that they have in the basket, which isn't much, but then Snow asks her if she likes sweet treats. Obviously she does, so he just hands her the rest of the stuff that they didn't end up trading today. Then Maud Ivory runs over to Lucy Gray, all excited about these sweet treats, and is pointing over to Snow and his table, being like, they're the ones who gave it to us, and Lucy Gray's like, oh my gosh. And this look of joy just spreads over her entire face, but little does she know this is the worst thing that will ever happen to her. She jumps back on the mic now, telling everybody this may just be the best night of her life, and she needs to sing them one more song. This is when she sings the song that she sang at the zoo when the girl got shot. And with lines like, roses are red, love, violets are blue, birds in the heavens know that I love you. He knows the song is for him. It's also now a guarantee that when he sees her, he will just be kissing her first. Once the song is over, he starts heading up for the stage. She's heading towards him. They're about to have their reunion, and then there's a disturbance in the hob because Billy Tope over here is making his first appearance since the reaping, and he's followed by the mayor's daughter, Mayfair. Lucy Gray is glaring at him. Snow connects the dots and is like, oh, this is the guy she was singing about during the night before the Hunger Games interview thing. Maude Ivory, though, is not about to let Lucy Gray get messed with today and plants herself right in front of her. She's like, no. Now, Billy Tope is clearly drunk right now, but he's going on about how they don't sound as good without him, they sound empty without him, and Clark Carmaine should just come with him because they would sound good together anyways without the rest of them. Clark Carmaine doesn't want to do that, though. A couple of peacekeepers now come over to grab him, and the whole energy in the hob just shifts. And to make matters even worse, somebody cuts the power at this time, and a brawl starts in the dark. People are punching, not even knowing that they're punching. Snow gets himself punched in the lip and thinks about how this is mankind in their natural state, just proving Dr. Gall's point. Our group of peacekeepers eventually make it out of there, but they're assigned to take Mayfair, the mayor's daughter, home. As they're walking Mayfair back, Snow is actually getting worried about Billy Tope somehow weaseling his way back into the covey and winning Lucy Gray's heart over, or stealing him from her, basically. And I don't know if he just saw what we just saw in there, but that's not gonna happen. Welcome to the most insecure man you can ever meet. The next morning, they're greeted with lovely news that from now on, no peacekeeper can leave the base without a buddy. So Sejanus is the first one to offer Snow to be his buddy to go see the covey today, so he can actually meet with Lucy Gray and have their reunion finally. Sejanus seriously is one of the best characters in this book because he was smart enough last night to figure out where the covey lives, so he knows they live at the end of the seam near the woods. Snow is like, what the heck is that? And he's like, it's kind of like the slums of District 12, like the even worse part of District 12, that's where they live, but near the end of the woods. I don't have their exact address because they don't have one, but I kind of know how to get there, so we're gonna figure it out today. Now, Snow doesn't want to just show up to their house empty-handed without a gift for Lucy Gray today, so the only thing he can really get is ice from the Peacekeeper base, because he knows the people of District 12 don't have access to ice, really. That's a luxury there. After he grabs that, they walk towards the seam, and it takes them a while to find her house. At a point, Snow is like, should we just go back? And Sejanus is the one that has to be like, no, you're gonna meet up with Lucy Gray today. You're gonna have a great day. We're getting to the house. Eventually, they do make it to the house. Nobody's out front, so they go around back to see if anybody's home, and Maude Ivory is there, just singing her little heart out because she's a covey girl. When she looks up to see them, she gets this huge grin on her face, and she goes, I know you. Now, mind you, Maude Ivory is still a kid. I believe she was too young for the reaping when we see her, so she's probably like 10 or 11. She's such a sweetheart. I love her. We'll get to one of my favorite scenes that is a darker scene later because it does make me crack up every time I think about it because it's a little bit ridiculous. If you know, you know. They all run inside where Barb Azar is, and she's like, oh, you're looking for Lucy Gray. You're her friend from the Capitol. I know you. She's actually down in the meadow. Maude Ivory, why don't you take them down there? And that's exactly what Maude Ivory does. They're talking, they're walking. Snow decides to ask her if they saw him on TV, since they obviously knew what he looked like already, since they're like, oh, you're the Capitol boy, you know? And she's like, well, we could only really catch the interview of the games or a couple bits of the games because Tam Amber made a little antenna out of some extra tinfoil we had, but besides that, we weren't really able to watch any of it because we don't have any connection here. And this doesn't make him think about the fact that they're struggling. No, he's like, man, the Hunger Games can never be effective if the districts can't watch them. I need to talk to Dr. Gall about that. Oh my gosh, Snow. He also asks about Billy Tope, and it's revealed that Clark Carmaine is his brother. That's why he was the one he singled out to come with him, do their own little solo act. The rest of them are Baird cousins, and then Tam Amber, well, he's just a lost soul. After a little bit, Maude Ivory finally points down in the meadow a little further, and she's like, she's down there with Seamus. Seamus is the goat. But let me make it clear, Snow was jealous of this fictional Seamus. Also, Seamus is a girl goat. Sejanus over here, he's the best wingman. He's like, hey, Maude Ivory, let's go back to the house with everybody else so these two can have a reunion, alone time. So now he's walking closer by himself. She doesn't know he's there yet. And he's hearing her sing The Hanging Tree. And The Hanging Tree is actually about Arlo's death. Lucy Gray is the one that wrote The Hanging Tree that we all know and love. Yes? Yeah. He's just entranced by all of her for a little bit. But as he slowly walks down, he eventually steps on a branch, and Lucy Gray whips around, dropping the guitar, ready for a fight right now. And when she sees it's him, she apologizes, saying, sorry, I still have one foot in the arena. They go to each other now, they embrace, they say a few words to each other, then they kiss for a while. After this nice little reunion, he gives her the ice and then starts asking her what happened to her off camera. And it turns out Lucy Gray was near the entrance of one of the tunnels that night when Sejanus went into the arena, and she asks him if they're the ones that moved Marcus. He confirms that yes, they are. He also explains the whole situation regarding murdering Bobbin and how it was all self-defense. Lucy Gray honestly didn't know if Snow was alive after that because the other tributes came back boasting, but she couldn't tell exactly what they were boasting about. They were probably just boasting about at least injuring them. She didn't fully relax again about him maybe being dead until she got water from him in the arena. It's also revealed that Wovie was her first kill. She didn't mean to target her, she just left some poison in a puddle of water, and Wovie is the one who happened to find it. Obviously, we know she killed Reaper with the poison water, but she also is pretty sure that Reaper had already contracted rabies from when Jessup spit in his eye at the zoo. Then the last kill she talks about is Treach, the one she killed with the snake. At this point, she still doesn't understand why the snakes were so chill around her, and Snow has to be the one being like, yeah, I cheated and that's why they were. She claims since she saved him from the fire and he saved her from the snakes, that they are now responsible for each other's lives, saying, I'm yours and you are mine. It's written in the stars. Oh, baby girl, you don't want that. No, he's bad. Run. And now he doesn't say this in an ominous fashion, but like, knowing what we know about Snow and his future, him saying, there's no escaping that, is terrifying. Poor Lucy Gray doesn't realize that she should be running as fast as she can right now away from that man. Anyways, they start talking about how Dean Highbottom actually gave her a good amount of money after the Hunger Games, basically as an apology to her, is what she tells Snow, but they haven't made that public to the rest of the Capitol or Panem. This conversation eventually wraps up, so they make their way back up to the house with Seamus the goat in tow. When they get inside the house, though, everybody seems kinda off, and then they look out the back window to see one Billy Taupe talking to a one Sejanus Plinth. Lucy Gray is a little mad right now because she thinks the rest of them just let Billy Taupe in here, and the rest of them are like, no, he just came to get his stuff, but now Sejanus is talking to him, even though he should be helping poor Maud Ivory here shell the nuts. As Snow is watching this through the window, it's clear that they're having an intense conversation right now. They're not fighting, it's just a very serious conversation. Then they start drawing something in the dirt. Snow can't tell exactly what it is, but somebody is giving the other one directions. He doesn't really know what's going on right now. Barb Azar is like, if he's talking to Billy Taupe, you should go home. He should not be talking to him. Billy Taupe is trouble. Lucy Gray volunteers to go outside by herself and deal with this, but Snow is like, no, I'm gonna come with you. And also, he wants to make sure that Billy Taupe understands very clearly that Lucy Gray is now his and will always be his. They're so lost in conversation outside, it takes till Lucy Gray standing basically right over them for them to stop talking. Now, Snow, also being closer to all this now, can tell that the image in the dirt is a picture of the base. It's a map of the base in the dirt. When Sejanus sees that Snow is there, he startles in a very guilty manner. Lucy Gray gets on to Sejanus first about not helping out Maud Ivory and how she's so disappointed right now. And then she goes to Billy Taupe and she tells him to get out of here and never come back in a not so nice way. Billy Taupe's like, oh, what you gonna do if I come back? Stick your peacekeeper on me? Lucy Gray's like, yeah, absolutely, if need be. Then she goes on about how she knows he didn't directly try to kill her, but he is still dating the girl that did. She knows that he was at the mayor's house last night. And also make sure it's clear to him that nobody else in that house wants him here anymore. And then frickin' Billy Taupe grabs her wrist, pulls her towards him, and asks where he's supposed to go now. Lucy Gray, meanwhile, just bites down on his wrist to make him let go. Snow finally steps up beside her. He was letting her pick her own fight. I kind of respect that, but he's like, all right, it's time for me to step in, cowboys. I don't know. Billy Taupe, though, is like, oh, here's your pretty boy that followed you here. Well, he's not ready for your past. And Snow's like, oh, what? Snow acts like he already knows all about her past, but Billy Taupe is alluding to, worse men in her past than himself. Finally, he leaves our little group, basically telling Sejanus that if he ever wants to talk more, he knows where to find him. Lucy Gray basically gives Snow an opportunity right now to just leave and never come back here because she's trouble, but he's like, no, I'm gonna stay. So she explains the whole story between Billy Taupe and Mayfair. See, she ended up just sending Billy Taupe over to the mayor's house to collect some money for the piano lessons she was giving Mayfair. But then those two started dating, and then Mayfair somehow twisted this story to make Lucy Gray seem like an evil person to Mayfair, and the mayor thought Lucy Gray was basically attacking his daughter, so that's how she ended up in the Hunger Games. They decide to leave this in the past for now, and they'll talk about it later, maybe another time. But right now, they're gonna go up front and milk Seamus the goat and get some goat milk. When they get there, though, Sejanus is already milking the goat because he owed Maud Ivory for not helping with the nuts. These two are hanging out inside. One of the covey ends up actually pulling out some goat milk that has been in the fridge that's in a butter turner so they can try to make butter. Snow is wondering what they're doing, and they explain they don't really get butter here. It's hard for them to get, so they try to make it out of the goat milk, even though it doesn't work too well. He starts thinking about all the times in his life he just grabbed one of those little packets of butter that's wrapped in like the little foil that you just put on toast and you don't think anything of it. And before they know it, the whole group has to go because they have a show to play tonight for a wedding. Before she runs off, Snow and her have a little talk about how he feels like it's best if they keep their relationship a secret for now. She agrees with this for the most part, but assures him that if he ever wants to come over here, he can come by anytime. But she doesn't know if they're going to be playing in the Hob next Saturday with all the trouble they caused last night. But if they are playing there, there's a shed behind the Hob that they all meet at before the shows, and he's welcome to stop by. This now leaves Snow and Sejanus to walk back to the base. And Corio decides it's a good time to ask his friend what him and Billy Taupe were talking about. Sejanus is like, it was nothing, but Snow's like, yeah, why did I see a map of the base in the dirt? And points out that he saved his life. He's owed the truth from him right now. So he fills him in that Lil, the wife of the man that was hung the other day, is in the jail at the base, and some of the people in the districts just want to talk to her. He didn't make any promises to help them with this, but he did give them information for them to achieve this. Corio is furious though, because he thought Sejanus left this whole rebel thing behind, but clearly not, and now he's helping out rebels. Sejanus is defending himself because it's such a tiny thing to let them check in on one of their own. Corio points out that it obviously wasn't a little thing if he was keeping it a secret from him, and then asks him if he knows what happens to rebel collaborators. Sejanus starts to say, I just thought, and Snow bursts in saying, no, you don't think. And it doesn't sound like Billy Taupe thinks either, at all, ever. I don't know why Billy Taupe would even want to help out with rebel plans, because Billy Taupe was part of the Covey, and Covey is neither district or capital, so why would they care? Sejanus explains that he was just asking this information for a friend. Corio is still furious though, and he's like, why would you want to help the friend of somebody who blew up a mine in District 12? They are costing District 12 citizens their work. They can't earn money if they can't get in those mines. Sejanus then asks Snow how long he thinks District 12 can go on like this, and says, look around, because they're still in the seams. They're still seeing the worst part of District 12, and it's bad. It's basically shacks out there. Snow has no sympathy for them because he believes this is the cost of losing the war, but explains to Sejanus that it will get better here as it slowly gets better everywhere else. But even the capital is still suffering. Oh, you're suffering in your nice little penthouse. Oh, poor rich boy. They find a place to sit down because Sejanus is now asking if he's committed treason, and Snow says, not yet. He actually starts to open up a little more about what happened to land him here. See, Dr. Gall really threatened them with punishing Sejanus far worse, and told them not to confuse his treasonous acts with Snow's piece of faulty strategy. So that's why they had to buy a whole big gymnasium for them, and then he got sent here after they did that. So he can live out his days in 12 instead of being straight up executed. And then, that's about all we get out on that, so now cut to a little later in the day. Snow was planning to use this afternoon to study for the officer's test, but he can't stop thinking about what Dr. Gall said to the plinths, about how his was just a faulty piece of strategy. He's going back and forth on wondering if it would be worth writing to her, and then decides, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the worst she can do is just not respond. I'm already in District 12. It clicks to him that their conversations have basically just been one ongoing lesson, so he decides to try to continue that lesson through this letter. He writes this whole letter about how in District 12 he feels like he has this perfect front row seat to watch the battle of chaos and control play out. Then after supper, Sejanus and him actually do spend some time studying for the test because there is one this Wednesday and they only do it 3 times a year. They didn't know if they were going to sign up at first, but Snow at least decides he's going to take it this Wednesday because why not? He's also trying to talk Sejanus into signing up because he feels like it might help him become a medic one day, but Sejanus isn't biting quite yet. Now cut to the next day. They're at target practice and they're actually informed they're going to follow Snow's plan of going into the woods to shoot down jabberjays and mockingjays. But first, the Citadel wants to capture 50 of both breeds. And of course, Snow is one of the lucky people that gets to go out in the woods this afternoon to try to trap birds with some of the lab assistants from the Citadel. At first, he doesn't recognize any of them. He thinks he's in the clear. Then he sees Dr. K, who is one of the lab assistants he ran into while he was kind of trying to get out of the Citadel the first time, and she got annoyed that he was bothering her birds, stuff like that. But he's not that worried because there's so many people here, he'll probably never run into her. They spend the whole day just setting the traps for the bird, placing seed in them, food in them so the birds will come in, but they're not setting the traps so they'll close just yet. They just want the birds to get used to them right now. And after a full day of work, Dr. K pays him no extra special attention. Doesn't even seem like she knows he's there. Nothing happens Tuesday, so now we're at Wednesday where he's taking the test. And this is something nice. He's used to taking a test. He loves taking a test because he's a nerd. Afterwards, he returns to their bunk room where the rest of them are actually back in the woods today, helping the scientists try to capture those birds, stuff like that, set up all the capturing. When he gets back to the bunk room, he sees 2 large boxes from Ma Plinth full with more treats. It also comes with a letter from Ma thanking him for all he has done for Sejanus. This gets him thinking about Sejanus a little more and about the fact that Sejanus is never going to change. His moral compass is too strong in the right way. Knowing that if Sejanus acts on any of his feelings, it could get him put in front of a firing squad, he decides to go ahead and break into Sejanus' locker to see if there's anything in there. He finds a couple medicine bottles, some seem to be sleeping pills, there's also some vials of morphine in there, prescribed from a doctor. He finds a picture of his family in there, a group of children, he assumes it's just all of them from school, but then he realizes he doesn't recognize anybody in that photo, and then he does recognize somebody, and it's Marcus. Yeah. This is a photo from his time in the districts. This is all his district friends in this photo. Friends. Then at the bottom of this locker, he finds a very nice silver frame with Sejanus' diploma in it. Now, Snow doesn't believe that for 1 second that Sejanus would want his diploma here, so he knows there has to be something more to this. And this is a thick picture frame, so he decides to open the back of it, and he finds a lot of money, like tens of thousands of dollars in there maybe, type of money. This doesn't seem like something his father would have done for him, so he thinks Sejanus got all this money himself. He doesn't know if this is allowances saved up over time or what this is or where it came from or why he has it here in District 12, where there's nothing really to buy. But then it clicks that you can buy other things with money besides just normal goods in District 12. You could buy information. Money would buy you power here. It could also buy you people's silence. But as he's thinking all of this, he starts to hear voices, so he shoves everything back in Sejanus' locker, gets in front of the boxes from Ma, and welcomes everybody back in, asking, who's ready to party Saturday, basically. Corio makes a little side comment to Sejanus here, being like, thank goodness for your Ma, or we wouldn't have a penny to our names, and Sejanus is like, yeah. And now Corio had never questioned Sejanus' honesty, but now he realizes maybe he should have been, and is wondering, what all Sejanus lied about. Meanwhile, Sejanus has no clue what's going on in Snow's mind right now, so he's just like, how'd the test go, buddy? Corio doesn't know though, they're sending it to the Capitol to get graded and for him to get placed on it and blah blah blah, testing stuff. That night, I think this is one of the most insane things. One of the most insane things Snow thinks during this entire thing. I don't know why I'm talking like this, but Snow, he's on guard duty and he's like, oh, this is so boring. I wish I'd be hanging out with Lucy Gray. Then he's like, I don't know what Lucy Gray is doing right now. She could be doing anything. She could be hanging out with Billy Tope for all I know. Honestly, it might have been better when she was locked up in the zoo in the Capitol, because then at least I knew where she was. What? Who thinks that about their significant other? Do you want them locked up somewhere all the time? Are there more crazy people like that? If you're thinking like that, please go to therapy right now. Turn off the video, go to therapy. Oh my gosh. Once he finally gets back to the bunk room that night, he writes a quick letter to Maud, thanking her for all the treats she's sending, and then also writes another one to Player Bispel to see if he could maybe get some guitar strings sent over for Lucy Gray. I can't talk. Then on Friday, he's back in the woods with the birds, and also his bunkmate Bug is his partner for this whole thing, so they've been working together this whole time, and Bug loves nature and birds, all that fun stuff. And this really impresses Dr. K. And now Bug and Corio over here are on Dr. K's team for the day. What they're doing today is resetting the traps so the traps will actually trigger if a bird goes inside them, and at some point during this day, Dr. K comes up to President Snow, he's not a president, comes up to Corio Snow, and she's like, hey, what are you thinking of the districts? And now he feels like a bird trapped in a cage. He just tells her, though, that he feels like he learned more in his short time in District 12 than he ever did at Panem's Academy. They get to talking a little more, and then it's revealed that Dr. K was actually the creator of the Jabberjays. And really, when they let them go in the wild, nobody thought they would last a winter. And she's quite impressed with her little projects. And really does love the Mockingjays. He's curious on how these birds actually work, so why not ask the lady who made them? And she explains they have this little remote. They used to be able to call them back, and they can't use that anymore because they took all those like satellites down that were used to do that, to call the birds back, but they can still control when the birds are recording speech or when they're just in a neutral thing where they'll pick up on random speech themselves and repeat it. But if they set to record and then back to neutral, then they just spit back everything that they heard in the recording. Conveniently enough, there is a Jabberjay trapped in a cage next to them because they already collected one. So she gets to show Snow how they work in real time. It copies his voice, and of course he is instantly freaked out, but is trying to play it off and being like, haha, that's so cool, it's mimicking me, that's so funny. Then they start talking about Mockingjays, and she asks him to sing a little something, so he sings part of the anthem, and the Mockingjays all start picking up on this melody and copying it in this beautiful fashion, but to Snow, it's terrifying, he hates it, he finds them unnatural, and he tells Dr. K that he thinks they should kill all of them. Dr. K's like, why? And he says, because they're unnatural. And I mean, what if they hurt other species? He's still trying to play it off like he doesn't hate all birds. Now, Dr. K, she just calmly explains that they seem rather compatible with the environment, and if they're not, then they'll die off in a few years anyway. Snow does agree that they're probably harmless, but he doesn't like how nature is just running amok out here, and really hopes all these mockingjays die off soon. At their end of the day in the forest, they find themselves with 30 jabberjays and not a single mockingjay. The mockingjays are tricky. They're avoiding every single trap they're setting out for them. Dr. K isn't too worried about this because they do have a backup plan. If the mockingjays don't go in the cages, they'll just bring some nets out and catch some that way. Snow is calming down about Sejanus because Sejanus hasn't been acting up at all throughout the week. He figures some stuff has calmed down. Maybe their talk that they had got through to Sejanus. And eventually our whole group at the end of the day is heading over to the Hob to watch the Covey perform once again. Once they're there, these two split off from the rest because they're gonna go to the shed before the show to meet up with the Covey and hang out with them for a little bit. They brought the Covey more treats. Maud Ivory is the one to accept them. Lucy Gray is telling them that they're spoiling her. And then these two kiss because they're in love. No, they're not. Not actually. They just have a weird trauma bond obsession with each other right now. Snow is asking how they're able to just hang out in the shed beforehand, and they're like, we actually don't know who owns this, so we're just perching here until they kick us out, but we haven't been kicked out thus far. Meanwhile, in Corio's mind, he's like, why is it always birds with this woman? Oh my gosh, freaking birds! But I'm working with birds right now, so I'm gonna tell her about the birds that we're capturing. For some reason, he thought she would think this was a super cool thing, that they were kidnapping birds from the wild to take them to a lab to control what they do for a while, and she doesn't find that interesting. It's like he doesn't even know her, because he really doesn't. She brings up that it kind of seems like they're torturing these birds, controlling their voices. He points out that they're not torturing them. I mean, there's no real equivalent of that they can do to humans. She's like, oh, do you feel like you can speak your mind freely all the time? His brain is like, yeah, well, of course. Well, within reason. But he agrees with the Capitol, so yes, he can basically say whatever he wants. He does think that if he did disagree with anything the Capitol was doing, he would be the one to speak out. Like Sejanus, right? No, you wouldn't. He tells Lucy Gray that he thinks people should be able to say what they think. And she's like, oh yeah, my father did too, but he ended up with more bullet holes in him than I can count on my fingers. He's kind of pissed off though, because this means that her dad probably was a rebel, and mentions that his dad was killed by rebels. She says, you're mad. He goes, no, I'm not. He says, I'm sorry about your father and my father, but I don't run Panem. You will one day and you won't change anything. But at that point, they don't have time to talk anymore because Lucy Gray is called up onto the stage. She's asking if she's gonna see him after the show, and he goes, probably not, curfew, which is a bullcrap lie. She does still invite him to the trip that the Covey is planning to take to the lake tomorrow, explaining that it is a decent hike into the woods and Sejanus is welcome to join them. And somehow, even though he is still very upset right now, he agrees to this. It's a miracle. Now off he goes to catch up with his friends, start drinking, and enjoy the music of the night. And later that night, Lucy Gray sings her very own ballad, the one that is about Lucy Gray, from the poem, basically. And Snow freaking hates this song so much, and Maud Ivory had mentioned that they were gonna sing a special song for him, and he knows this is the one, so he's like, how am I gonna tell him I like this song, because it's so bad. It's about this little girl who lived in the mountains, she was traveling, and then at some point her footprints just disappear in the snow, so they think she died, or they don't really know what happened to her. He hates little ghost story poem things like this. He thinks it's stupid. He doesn't like the song at all. He goes to make a little side comment about this song to Sejanus, only to find that Sejanus is not sitting next to him. Sejanus is not in his seat. Eventually, Sejanus pops back up. When Snow asks where he went, he explains that he just went outside because the white liquor runs right through him. He had to go to the bathroom. Corio knows that white liquor doesn't run right through anybody, though, and the amount that Sejanus consumed was way too small. So this is just another lie from Sejanus to Corio. The show ends. Snow is so drunk at this point. They're stumbling back to the base. He throws up on the way, but he's also thinking about how he needs to talk to Sejanus about all the stuff he's doing and make him understand how much danger he is putting himself in right now. But he also realizes he needs to find a good way to approach him about this. So he's not going to talk about it tonight, obviously, because he's drunk, but he does make sure that Sejanus knows about the lake trip tomorrow and that he's invited on it. And obviously, this sweet boy is thrilled to go on a lake trip with everybody. So the next day, with hungover Snow, they meet up at the house with the Covey. Barb Azur is actually hanging back at the house because she's gonna have some alone time with her girlfriend today while the rest of them are gone, and our little group heads down to the lake. Lucy Gray doesn't seem mad at all about their fight last night. They just keep walking to the lake. They're having normal conversation. Snow, meanwhile, is getting more and more anxious the further and further away they get from civilization. He doesn't like being out in the woods, unlike her, who is like coming alive out here. Then eventually Maud Ivory comes skipping over and she's like, what did you think of our song last night, The Ballad of Lucy Gray? He puts on his best fake smile and is like, it was fantastic. Maud Ivory's like, okay, great, but what are your theories on what happened to Lucy Gray? Like, where did she go? Her footprints just disappeared in the snow. Because Maud Ivory personally thinks that Lucy Gray basically just turns into a bird or gets the ability to fly and just flies around the mountains now. Snow was like, what the frick is this kid talking about? But Clark Hermaine is the one to jump in being like, oh, come on. She's a ghost. She just walked off a bridge and it was so far down that nobody could see her body down there. Maud Ivory is not happy with this answer though and is asking Lucy Gray for her clarification since it is her ballad. And Lucy Gray says, it's a mystery, sweetheart, just like me. That's why. It's my song. And then finally they make it to the lake and our whole group jumps in instantly. Now, if you haven't already put it together, this is the lake that Katniss grows up going to with her father. This is also where the little shack in Catching Fire is located, where she meets with the two from District 8 who are escaping to District 13. There's a whole bunch of crossover here, and it's so cool. I love it. This is the one part of the book right here where I will ever relate to Snow. He's swimming in the lake, having a great time, then he's like, I gotta get out of the lake, because he starts thinking about what's in the lake water, and I do the same exact thing. I love to paddleboard so much, but I am on my board 80% of the time, 90% of the time. I'll like jump into the lake for a little bit, cool off, and then get back on my board, but I'm not gonna go swimming around in there too long. It's creepy. What's down there? I can't see it. And I don't really want to know. Later on that afternoon, Lucy Gray and Corio actually have a little time to talk. She apologizes for upsetting him last night, and he apologizes for overreacting. But he does explain that he can't pretend to be somebody he's not. He doesn't agree with everything that the Capitol does, but he does think that most of it is necessary. She's like, okay then, do you think the Hunger Games are okay? He explains that honestly he doesn't even know why they do them, but he does think that people are forgetting about the war too quickly, and the Capitol is the only place that can keep the rest of Panem under control right now. They're the only ones with the resources to do so. And without them, people would just run around killing each other all the time. Lucy Gray draws back from him a bit at this time because they're kind of like cuddling on a little picnic towel thing situation. She's like, is that honestly what you think of people? He just keeps going on about how the Capitol is the thing that's keeping them all safe. She's asking what the Capitol has ever done to keep her safe and why she should have to give up stuff for that. He says, you didn't have to give anything up. And she points out that she was literally in a band of travelers that were all rounded up and forced to stay in District 12 and they can't travel anymore. Yeah, she had to give stuff up. Also, she lost both of her parents during the war. All he gets out of this is that her family was still rebels and how dare they. She tells him, no, my family were Covey first and last. They weren't Capitol, we weren't rebels, and they definitely weren't peacekeepers. She's trying to get him to realize that he was pushing back against the Capitol with all that he did for her during the Hunger Games. He does realize on some level that this was him pushing against the Capitol and it was wrong in the Capitol's eyes. But he truly believes that if the Capitol wasn't in charge, that the whole world would basically just implode. She has to remind him that people have been around a lot longer than the Capitol. Then Clark Hermaine runs over and he's like, hey, I got this edible plant. It's got this nice little root on it. It's got this nice flower on the top. And he brings it over to Lucy Gray to look at and she's like, oh, I don't think the Katniss is quite ready. That's just a little Easter egg for us though, so Clark Hermaine brings over some fish later. They roast all of those. After everybody eats, Sejanus then brings out the cookies he brought from his ma. While they're eating their little desserts, he comments on the color of the sky and how pretty it is. Maud Ivory is the one to say, it's Barb's color, azure. Snow is asking what she means by this, and Maud Ivory explains that everybody in the covey has a color for a middle name and a name from a poem or a ballad for their first name. They have a little more conversation, and then Lucy Gray starts singing Deep in the Meadow to Maud Ivory. We're not going to talk about all the feelings that song brings up because it brings up too many to go over. Snow is enjoying this nice peaceful song until those dang mockingjays join in and his whole body tenses and proceeds to go on a whole other paragraph long at least mental rant about these mockingjays. He cannot stand them. After the song's over, all of a sudden Billy Taupe is getting brought up again. And how he's trying to weasel his way back into the covey. He even went to the meadow the other day to see Lucy Gray and told her all about this escape plan he had with a few others so they could just run away from District 12. And apparently Billy Taupe wanted her to come with him. But she's not falling for this. Billy Taupe has already screwed her over once. She's not gonna run into the woods with him. But Snow doesn't know if this girl will be able to resist the temptation of a man and gets a little worried and jealous again. Again, the most insecure man ever. But anyways, these two wrap up this little conversation they're having that trust is the most important thing in a relationship. It's even more important than love. And then they're both like, I trust you. It's basically them saying, I love you, but instead they're saying, I trust you because they think that's the most important thing. And it honestly is. Like, it's a valid thing to have the most important thing. It's just the relationship is bad. I can't agree with this relationship. I feel like one of my friends is starting to date a toxic guy and I don't like it. Anyways, they end up kissing after all because, again, they are a couple. Anyways, they end up kissing because they are a couple after all. But after this kiss, he still can't stop thinking about how she might go back to Billy Taupe, you know, the boy who almost got her killed. Yeah. As they're walking back from the lake a little later that day, he gets a little separation from the rest of the group and asks Maud Ivory if she's seen Billy Tope at all, and she hasn't. And it makes him realize that Lucy Gray is hiding any contact she's having with Billy Tope from the covey as well, which makes him feel even worse, even though she told him about it the day after it happened. But Maud Ivory does say that Sejanus should not be hanging out with Billy Tope because he brings trouble anywhere he goes. This sparks a little thought in Koryo's mind of how is Billy Tope and the little gang that he's gonna go with out in the woods gonna get all the supplies to run away from District 12? They would need an awful lot of money to do that. Moving on from that, Lucy Gray and Snow actually end up getting back to the house a little later than everybody else because everybody stopped to pick berries, but these two just stayed a little longer to get some more, berries. Only for Barbazzer to let them know once they're back that Sejanus went off to the hob by himself, but peacekeepers need another peacekeeper buddy with them or they can get in major trouble, so Snow's like, okay, well, I gotta go save his ass right now. Once he gets to the hob, he finds Sejanus in front of a table with pickaxes and knives and stuff like that, and he realizes that one of the things you can buy with money is weapons! And to confirm his suspicions even further that Sejanus is probably buying weapons or something he shouldn't be buying right now, when he gets closer to the table, him and the woman that he's talking to both stop talking. Not suspicious at all. Sejanus just plays this off as he was just planning to get a pocket knife one day. Snow's like, oh yeah, maybe I can get one too after our first paycheck comes. And he's like, oh yeah, definitely after our first paychecks because he's not supposed to have any money either right now. Once they're on the way back to the base and a little further out from the hub, he stops them and he's like, hey Sejanus, you're like a brother to me, so if you get yourself into anything deeper than you can handle, please let me know. And all he says in response is, thank you, that means a lot. They hug it out, but there's no real answer from Sejanus on any of this. He's not revealing anything that he's been doing the past few days. Luckily, the next week, he knows that Sejanus will be kept busy because he's being kept busy. That whole week until Wednesday, they're out in the woods on bird duty just trying to catch these mockingjays because they will not go in the traps that they can just plant around. They are catching them with nets, doing everything and anything to get 50 mockingjays. Luckily, eventually they do, like I said, by Wednesday. Now all they have to do is tag them and load them in the trucks to get them back to the capital. Bug their other roommate grabs the last mockingjay they tag and is taking it off to go load it on the capital truck or hovercraft that's there. And this is when Sejanus pops up, wanting to talk to Snow because Ma just sent them another package of treats. But then he gets a little more serious and he's like, hey, Koryo, can we talk? Luckily, Bug is out of earshot, so Snow's like, yeah, as he starts working on tagging the first mockingjay. Sejanus is like, look, I only got a few minutes to talk to you about something real serious, okay? Koryo, meanwhile, is like, this kid is about to confess some treasonous rebel plan to me. I just know it. I know it in my bones. He thinks about a few of the things that he could do. He could panic and just run away from this conversation. He could tell Sejanus to shut up right now. But what he ends up doing is the little remote that's out of eyesight of Sejanus, but in reach of Snow, he ends up grabbing that little remote for the Jabberjays and he hits record. Just as Sejanus starts to talk about this whole plan he has with some people from District 12 on how they're going to escape into the woods and leave Panem forever. The only thing he has to do to be included in this plan is to help them get Lil out of the base. And he plans to do just that. He goes over the full in-depth plans of what they're going to do to get Lil out of this base, explains he sees Snow like a brother and he's so thankful for everything he's done for him, and tells him that if his father ever asks what happens to him, just to tell him that the plinth names lives on in obscurity. At that moment, Koryo knows he has enough. He just heard the plinth name. They know the only plinth that is in District 12 is Sejanus, so he stops the recording. It goes back into neutral now until somebody asks it to repeat its recording back to it. And at that point, Bug comes running back needing some stuff for the birds. Snow's like, actually, I can go get that. Sejanus, why don't you come with me? And then he starts telling Sejanus about all the many things that could go wrong with this plan. But Sejanus is going to go along with this plan because he can't keep living like this. He can't live under the capital's thumb his entire life. Snow isn't too concerned about this recording that he just took because he thinks that Dr. Gull will hear it, she'll put in a call to Strabo Plinth, and Strabo Plinth will get his son out of District 12 and they'll basically just keep him contained, he'll pay it off, it'll all be fine. But then that night, he has a little nightmare about Sejanus dying in a messed up way, and then he realizes that this wasn't just a little oopsie he recorded, this is straight up treasonous talking that he recorded Sejanus talking about. But you know what? Maybe the scientist will never hear it, so it'll be fine. I mean, what happened the last time he thought something he did wouldn't have any effect on anything? I think that went well for him. Then the rest of the day, he's just going back and forth on whether he actually wants them to hear the message from the Jabberjays or not. He doesn't really know what he wants out of this. He doesn't want Sejanus to die, but he also doesn't want treasonous actions to be happening by his friend, you know? Then he starts thinking about what Lucy Gray would think about this, and he knows she wouldn't be happy about this, and she may just go running right back to Billy Tope, because that's her only option. If she's not with one man, she has to go to another, obviously. And then she would just run away with the rest of them. Now cut to Saturday. They're back at the Hob, but they get there like right before the show starts, so they don't have time to go back to the shed beforehand that day. And the first song they're playing sounds like another song that's about Billy Tope, and he just hates that they keep writing songs about this guy because he would really like Lucy Gray to write a song about him. Even though they're not nice songs about Billy Tope, she's still writing about Billy Tope, so he's jealous. But then as songs keep playing, he sees Sejanus get up and walk over to the open door of the shed. Now all the Covey are on the stage right now. Snow decides to wait it out for now because he doesn't want to walk into a nest of rebels, you know. But then he starts to get a little more curious once the woman who was selling the weapons in the Hob walks out of the shed. She's holding a whole lot of cash, and he realizes that Sejanus probably just bought some guns. He knows it's time for him to get himself over there by the end of the current song the Covey is playing, so he sneaks over, kind of peeks his head around so he can just see in the shed, and he sees Sejanus and Billy Tope leaned over a burlap sack that's holding a bunch of weapons. Then he takes a step closer, and then he realizes there is a gun barrel aimed at his ribs. He's slowly raising his hands, and this is when he hears footsteps coming towards him and Lucy Gray laughing. She's just coming to see him because she saw him slip away during the show and wanted to say hi. Then she notices the man with the gun and kind of falters and stops herself there, and that man tells them to both get in. Sejanus tells this guy that his name's Spruce that these two are all right, they're both of him. I mean, Snow is basically his brother. Spruce is asking for more clarification on Lucy Gray, and Billy Tope is the one to speak up saying, she's coming with me, she's my girl. And Lucy Gray plays right into this, not wanting to die right now. So when they're asked if Lucy Gray and Snow are dating, she's like, no, he's dating my cousin. And it's only at this moment that he realizes Lucy Gray is lying to save both of them right now. At first, he thought she was seriously just running back to Billy Tope. Just as they're diffusing this whole situation, though, and starting to get more information on this rebel plan, the other door swings open, and Mayfair walks in, and she is ticked off because Lucy Gray is here standing right next to Billy Tope, who she is still dating for all we know. Billy Tope is trying to defuse the situation, being like, hey, it's not how it sounds. It's fine, actually. But Mayfair is already going on about how she's gonna tell her pa, the mayor, about all of this. When Billy is trying to be like, hey, she's all talk, no action, it's fine, Mayfair decides to bring up the fact that she got Lucy Gray sent to the Hunger Games. I don't know why she would bring that up right now. There's people holding guns in this room, but she did. And then she starts backing away towards the door, and Snow knows if this girl runs right now and tells the mayor, his future is over. Spruce tries to shoot her, but Billy Tope knocks his gun out of the way so it doesn't actually hit her. But Snow picks up the Peacekeeper rifle that they all bought and shoots her with it. Billy Tope is asking, what did you do? Lucy Gray is currently shaking. Snow is telling her to get back on stage so she has an alibi. But Billy Tope wants Lucy Gray to go down with the rest of them and goes charging towards her. Then Spruce, with the other gun in the room, just shoots Billy Tope and he's dead as well now. And this is the part I was talking about earlier with Maud Ivory that just makes me giggle every time because it's kind of comedic. She's up on stage singing about keep on the sunny side of life, just like, woo, here we go. Meanwhile, in the shed, people are getting shot and dying. But meanwhile, Lucy Gray is stunned and has stopped moving at this point, and Snow basically just shoves her out the door, telling her to get back on stage, again, for the alibi. Because it's not gonna look good that her ex-boyfriend and the girl that got her sent to the Hunger Games are dead in a room. He goes and checks on Billy just to see if maybe he has a pulse. He doesn't. Spruce is like, hey, I know they're both dead, but I'm not planning to tell anybody. As long as you guys aren't, we should all be fine. The weapons are gonna be taken with us when we run away from 12, and nobody's gonna find them. They do all know, though, that somebody will end up paying for this one day. They just hope it's not them. Luckily for Corio, he made it in and out of that shed without touching anything. Well, besides the gun, the murder weapon. He touched the murder weapon. But again, like I said, that'll be the thing that gets taken out of District 12 for good, so he'll be fine, right? And Sejanus and Snow just go back, take their seats, and they act like nothing has happened. Definitely not like they just saw two people get murdered, and Snow didn't just murder one of them. Lucy Gray gets back on stage and plays her cards very smartly, and keeps the rest of the Covey on stage for as long as possible. So long that she actually keeps them all on stage until the very end of the show. Corio tells Sejanus that they need to head straight back to the base and act like they know nothing. So after the show is over, they go. And then, all of a sudden, as they're walking, they hear Maud Ivory scream because she's the one who finds the dead bodies. Some peacekeepers start whistling, some others are telling the ones that are off duty to just get back to the base now. So Sejanus and Snow just follow orders. Once they're back at the base, they go to the bathroom for some privacy, and Snow makes it very clear that they know nothing about what happened tonight. They both left the Hob for a little bit to go to the bathroom, and then they came back and watched the show. Sejanus is worried about the others, but Corio assures him that Spruce is long gone by now. Spruce said he was going in the woods, like right now. His escape plan is happening now, so he doesn't get caught for murder, okay? And then Lucy Gray is not going to tell Sol because it would put the Covey in danger. And now he has to start reassuring himself that this was all just self-defense once again, and he would shoot this girl in every timeline, because this was to save his own skin. The next morning, these two have to act surprised about the murders, and we also find out that there is a manhunt going on because of them. Corio is happy for all this because Spruce is out of here with the weapons. They're not going to say anything. They're not going to suspect two peacekeepers did this, and Lucy Gray was on stage the whole time besides just a couple minutes, so obviously she couldn't have done it. Janus is worried that they may end up arresting somebody innocent, and Snow's like, good, then it's not us. They make it all the way to Tuesday of that next week, and the interest in the murders has died down. They think they're both in the clear at this point. And then he also gets some more good news. He got the guitar strings from Pluribus Bell, so he's so excited to give those to Lucy Gray when he can see her again. But they both agreed that they need to stay separated for a while so they don't draw any extra suspicion towards each other. But then, of course, just as he's starting to feel real comfortable about everything and how life's going and how it's on the up and up, while he's in the mess hall, they bring in a guy that is on a stretcher, and he's beat up and bloody. Snow thinks this man might be dead, only for that man to turn and make eye contact with him, and it's Spruce, the guy from the shed. Later that night, he finally gets to tell Janus about this, and they have no clue if he's here because they connected him to the murders, or if it's because he got caught trying to run away. Luckily for them, though, they learn that Spruce died in the night from his injuries, so sucks for him, but he can't talk about them if he's dead. Yeah, well, they thought so, until at lunch that day, an officer comes over to their table and arrests Janus. Goody. His bunkmates are confused, and he has to act the same way, and they're all saying, there must have been some mistakes. Sejanus would have never been involved in anything. Snow at this point is just waiting for Sejanus' father to just show up and save his son right now, and decides to go ahead and write a letter to him just in case he doesn't know. He even checks if he's able to call anybody about this, but he's not allowed to make phone calls out until he's been here for a little longer. But that afternoon, they're all called to the auditorium where it's announced they will be hanging one of their own this afternoon for treason. Yeah, that's right, they're hanging Sejanus this afternoon. There's no time for Daddy to save him. And of course, at the end of this announcement, Snow is called forward because he will be one of the peacekeepers that will be going to this hanging to fill out the ranks. He gets there, he's in the exact same position as he was for Arlo's execution, and he watches as the vans pull up and they bring Sejanus and Lil out of that last van there. Sejanus passes Snow and they lock eyes for a moment, and all Snow can see is the 8-year-old boy from the playground way back in the day. He looks so frightened right now, and he just mouths the word Corio. And Then they read off the crimes of the people that are to be hung today, Sejanus and Lil. He finds Lucy Gray in the crowd, just seeing tears stream down her face. Then the drums begin. Snow closes his eyes, but he can't block out what he's hearing from Sejanus right now, his final cries, and then hearing his neck snap as the trapdoors are opened. And then all the Jabberjays pick up on his last words, repeating "Ma" over and over and over again. This was just a boy calling out for his mom at the end, and I can't handle that. His death is one of the hardest in this book, and it's so weird because the book twists it to where part of the time it makes you feel like you're supposed to be annoyed with him, but it's because he's going against Snow and we're in Snow's POV. So Sejanus is normally the one we would root for and is the one you root for when you're in these books, but sometimes while you're reading them, you get so trapped up in Snow's monologuing that you're like, oh, Sejanus, and then you're like, wait, why am I thinking that? I did that a couple times and I was like, wait, no, I like Sejanus. It also doesn't help that the guy that got to play Sejanus, like, he just has a weird vibe. He doesn't have the Sejanus vibe, I feel like. I wish he wasn't cast, but I know they kind of had to cast him to get her, and I love her, so it's okay. He's not the worst. No hate towards him. It's just not my personal favorite betrayal of this character, and the actor in real life has some iffy vibes about him. But I don't know. I don't know him personally. What can I say? But anyways, until Snow gets back in his room that night, he stays completely stone-faced, not letting any of the other peacekeepers know how this is affecting him. But he feels like he killed Sejanus as surely as he killed Bobbin or Mayfair. But then he starts to remind himself that Sejanus was just bent on self-destruction. He would have gotten himself killed in the arena if he hadn't gone in and saved him, so at least he got his life extended a little bit, but apparently this was just destiny for Sejanus in Snow's mind. He goes over to Sejanus' locker. Again, nothing has really changed in there except for a couple of Ma's cookies being in there. He takes a bite of one, but then he remembers the sound of the Jabberjays just picking up his final words of Ma and repeating it over and over again and gags on it. And then he finally starts to sob. After he recovers a little bit, he takes all of the money that was stuffed in that picture frame Sejanus has and sends it in a letter to Tigerus. and then goes over to his things and digs out a scarf that was his mother's that he's going to give to Lucy Gray, because he's sure at this point he's going to be caught and hung for these murders. Then Saturday, he's called into the commander's office and he's sure this is it. But he's actually just offered gratitude for the sacrifice he made to turn Sejanus in, since everybody knew they were like brothers, explaining that Dr. Gall received his message that he put in the Jabberjay. That's why Sejanus is dead. So yes, he did kill Sejanus. He is the reason Sejanus is dead. It's not because of the murder. No. And he's even asked if he thinks that Sejanus could have been mixed up in the murders, and Snow's like, no, I don't think so. He does ask the commander if he thinks these murders are connected to the escape plan. But the commander doesn't really know and doesn't really care to find out, because these are just district citizens. Like, really, it doesn't matter. And honestly, it saved him quite a bit of trouble, because Billy was obviously a rebel and Mayfair was just causing all sorts of problems. Then he's asked some more questions about Sejanus and if he knew he was getting guns and stuff like that, and Snow of course says no. He's just lying his little face off right now, trying to save himself. He's also told that they still have peacekeepers everywhere searching for these guns, knowing that they're gonna show up one day, and since Spruce never left District 12, they're probably still here. He knows they're gonna find them at some point. Anyways, they wrap it up, and the commander tells Snow to enjoy the festivities tonight because it is the commander's birthday and they're throwing like a little birthday bash that everybody's going to enjoy. His bunkmates are so happy to see him when he gets back because they thought another Sejanus situation was happening, but he just explains that they actually just wanted to see if he had any more information on Sejanus, and he doesn't. Now we get to dinner that night, and they have a feast: steak, mashed potatoes, peas, fresh peas might I add, beer, and cake. They are thriving. And then it's announced they hired a band from the Hob to come play for them. And Snow is so happy and goes right out the door to go grab the scarf real fast that he wants to give to Lucy Gray. When he gets back, the band is starting to come on stage. They sing happy birthday to him. And then Lucy Gray comes out after the first song wearing the rainbow dress from the arena once again. And it feels like a reminder to him that they are both once again back in the arena fighting for their lives. After the first half an hour of songs, she sits down on a stool for the solo song, and it's clearly about him. It wasn't clear at first, but by the end of the song, he's like, oh yeah, that's about me. Ha, cool. After that song, she disappears backstage, and Snow goes off to find her. They hug each other tight. They're just apologizing to each other about what happened to Sejanus, and comforting each other as well. And just start to go over how awful the past couple weeks have been for both of them. The mayor has been harassing her because the mayor is convinced she had something to do with the murder of Mayfair, because it really does look like she did, but I mean, she was there, but not really. Like, she didn't want them to die. Mayfair was just being dumb and poked the angry bear already, and Lucy Gray didn't do anything personally. And it's gotten to a point where the mayor is threatening the rest of the Covey, so she's going to run away from District 12 and go into the woods by herself at this point, and she's just so happy she's able to tell him goodbye. But he knows he has no future left here. They're gonna find that gun one day. It's in District 12 somewhere. They're gonna find it, his fingerprints will be on it, and his life will be over. So he tells her he's coming with her. They'll run away together. So it's decided that they're leaving tomorrow. Then they split up so she can get back on stage and he can get back in the auditorium, so it's not too suspicious. Once she's back on stage, she starts singing The Hanging Tree. A clear sign to him that that's where they're supposed to meet up, because they forgot to mention that. Cut to the next morning now. It's runaway day, and he's up bright and early going with the rest of the people to breakfast that are early risers. But when he steps outside, somebody comes over and they're like, hey, you're wanted back in the commander's office. And he's like, oh, great, I've been caught and I was just about to leave. But he gets back there and the commander's just like, hey, we just wanted to tell you that you're the youngest person ever to pass the officer test. And normally they would train them here in District 12 for a bit, but they're sending him to a higher level program up in District 2. And he's filled with so much regret because he really wants to go to District 2. If he could go to District 2, he really does have a path back into the capital, back to being part of the upper society of the capital even. You can make a name for yourself being a peacekeeper if you play it right. So he's once again acting like he's so happy, so thrilled that this is happening to him, but he knows that he is still leaving today because again, they will find that gun, and even if it's in 2, it won't stop them from hanging him. He asks when he leaves though, and then he's told when he leaves, and then he is let go. And this is when he sneaks off the base to meet Miss Lucy Gray at the Hanging Tree. As they start walking through the woods, she admits that she honestly doesn't know if she could actually run away by herself. She feels like after a few days she would get bored and run back to the Covey, or lonely and run back to the Covey. She also left all her money that she was given for winning the Hunger Games to the Covey, so they're gonna be just fine. And also, Maud Ivory was about to take over for her as head singer anyway, so it's just a couple years earlier. They continue on their walk to the lake because that's where they plan to have their first stop. Since they already know that area, they're gonna stock up on some supplies there, fish a little, maybe stop in the hut because it has started kind of drizzling. They say goodbye to District 12 as it gets further and further in the distance. Snow comments on how he won't miss the people, and she's like, really? I feel like that's what I'm gonna miss most of all. But he's like, no, people are just always awful. And she's like, I don't think that's right. She believes that there's a natural goodness in everybody, and we spend our entire lives just trying not to cross the line over into the evil side, darker side. As they're walking and talking, they start joking, and she's like, hey, it would be nice in my new life not to have to kill anybody. And he says, 3's enough for me. Now, mind you, he killed Bobbin and Mayfair. Who's the third? That's what she's wondering. But he doesn't think anything about what he just said. He's like, yeah, I killed 3 people. Anyway, she hasn't asked anything out loud, so he just bends down, is making a walking stick for himself, and asks Lucy Gray if she wants one. She's like, who's the third? Yes or what, then kind of slips up on purpose and gets a splinter in his finger and asks her to help with that. But she just ignores that, and she's like, who's the third person you killed this summer? You said you killed 3 people. Now, of course, the answer is Sejanus, but obviously he doesn't want to tell her that, because of the whole Jabberjay situation and his death really being his fault. He just asks her again if she can get the splinter out of his finger, just to give him a little more time to make up an answer. She starts examining the splinter, but still is going on saying, Bobbin, Mayfair, who's the third? And finally, this genius boy comes up with, myself, I killed myself, my old self. Dude, you could have said so many things. You could have said so many things. Like, you could have said you cared about Sejanus so much, you thought of him as your own brother and you wanted to protect him, and then he still died and you feel guilty about that. That might have worked. Or, I don't know, anything but your old self. That makes no sense. She makes a little comment as she gets the splinter out saying, I really hope that the old you doesn't haunt the new you. She's not fully believing it. And obviously, after this, their conversation kind of dies down. He doesn't really think much of it. He thinks that he got away with it. Once they get to the lake and start gathering supplies, he realizes how much he just hates living outside. He doesn't like being outside at all. All of it's dirty, gross, ew. He doesn't want to live like this, and he doesn't know how he's gonna live like this for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, Lucy Gray is thriving and just grabbing all the supplies she can at the lake. Eventually, it starts raining pretty hard, so they get the fish and other stuff they gathered into the cabin, and they decide to start a little fire in there to start cooking it so they don't get drenched. Once they're inside and he shuts the door, he realizes that the door had been concealing something. A burlap bag with a couple guns sticking out of it. He can't believe these might actually be the guns the peacekeepers are looking for right now, but then he notices it's an old peacekeeper rifle and a shotgun, and those were the 2 guns there. And he knows without a shadow of a doubt, these are the guns. This means he's free. Lucy Gray is just going about the cabin though, lighting the fire stuff, not really paying attention to what he's looking at, and he's not really paying attention to her because he's just wondering how the guns got here. She finally looks back, asking him what he found, and then realizes those might be the guns from the shed, and asks that out loud. He says they must be, and then casually is asking if maybe they should take them with them. She goes, I don't really trust them, but they would come in handy. Then she pulls out a pretty large knife, saying that she's gonna go dig up some Katniss from the lake. Snow stops her as she's heading out the door though, saying, I thought you said the patch of Katniss wasn't ready yet. And she's like, a lot can change in 2 weeks. Then he points out that it's still raining, she'll get wet. And she points out that she's not made of sugar. She accepts all of this and is also quite happy to have a minute alone to start thinking about what this all means for him and what he should do now. Because if he has the murder weapons and he can get rid of them out here, the peacekeepers aren't gonna come looking for them out here. They're already hours away from District 12. So he can throw them in that lake and be free to go back to District 12 and then go to District 2 for officer training and actually bring his family's name back to the high spot of the capital that it should be eventually. And the only thing that would still be connecting him to those murders would be Lucy Gray, but she would be out in the woods, right? Well, she already told him that she doesn't know if she could last out in the woods all by herself, and she would probably end up going back to the covey anyways. And she would have a pretty bitter taste in her mouth about Snow if she did go back to the covey, if he went off to District 2 for officer training, leaving her to live in the woods by herself. So maybe she might just tell some people about stuff, but would they actually believe her? He doesn't know, but that's a lot of things to leave up to chance. And then he starts thinking about how Billy Tope crossed her and he ended up dead, and he really doesn't want to end up dead. And thinks about the comment Billy Tope made about how Lucy Gray was playing him as well, and starts thinking about all the things she did in the arena and how she bit Billy Tope on the wrist. He's reminding himself pretty well that she's not a lamb, she's not made of sugar, she is a victor. He does a casual check to see if the peacekeeper's gun is loaded, then goes outside and starts calling her name. The Jabberjays start to pick it up and he tells them to shut up, but she's not responding to him. And he knows that Lucy Gray is hiding from him because she realized that he figured out that he is the last thing tying him to those murders. He doesn't understand though why, when just yesterday she was singing about how he was pure as the driven snow, that she would think that he would actually do something to hurt her. And then it really clicks that she knows everything. She knows about Sejanus. She put some stuff together here. Sejanus is the 3rd person he killed. She doesn't know exactly how, but she knows he did it. Snow, though, is still like, I don't know why she thinks I would kill her, as he's holding a loaded gun. He tries to tell himself to put the gun down, but then remembers that she has a really big knife. And then just starts to continue to call out her name, saying that she's scaring him. He knows that if she just came out and told him that she was just gonna go off alone like she was planning to the whole time, everything would be just fine. So he continues to call out to her, saying that he just wants to talk, as he's still holding a gun. Then he starts worrying, did she head back to District 12 already to report him? He doesn't know, but it would be her words against his, and he's a peacekeeper, he's a capital boy, so maybe it would work out. But this would still destroy his reputation. He can't let that happen. He still can't find her, so at this point, he starts hunting her down, looking for tracks in the woods, literally hunting her. Finally, he sees a patch of orange that catches his eye. It's the same orange as his mother's scarf, so he goes over there, but it's just a scarf. He lifts it up, only to be bitten by the snake that is hiding underneath it. He doesn't know if this snake is poisonous or not, so he's thinking Lucy Gray may literally be trying to kill him right now. She's used poison snakes before, so why wouldn't she again? And this is where he starts sympathizing with Billy Taupe. He doesn't know how much longer he has until that poison actually sinks into his system, but he knows he needs to get moving. He needs to find her. And then he starts laughing because their relationship has just evolved into their own mini Hunger Games. He hears a sound and starts running towards it, but then the mockingjays and the jabberjays start singing in the tree, disguising any sound that he may hear. And you want to know what they're singing? The Hanging Tree. This is just her way of telling him that she knows about Sejanus. He ends up sending a spray of bullets into the trees because he, again, hates these birds. He runs away from there, goes back to the lake, gets all the weapons into that burlap sack again, and then fills that burlap sack with some rocks as well, swims out in the middle of the lake, and drops it. And then he goes back to the cabin and throws the rest of the fish in the fire so they'll burn, leaving her with no food. And now he knows for sure that the guns are gone. All the supplies that is left here is Lucy Gray's. The only thing that proves he was ever here are his footprints, and those are getting washed away as we speak. After a long couple-hour hike, thinking he may be poisoned, he finally makes it back to District 12, where a full Appalachian thunderstorm has started. He eventually makes it back to the base, then gets back to the doctor, where he is told that snake didn't have any poison in it. But he doesn't believe that because he threw up at one point on his way back, and he's asking them how that's possible, and they say it was probably the anxiety and stress, and maybe he was a little dehydrated. Then he gets back to his bunk, where he had made like a makeshift sleeping himself there out of some pillows on his bed, only to find that his bunkmates aren't even awake yet. He's had a lifetime of experiences in a morning. So he takes his time to pack up since he's leaving tomorrow for District 2 for officer training. He also grabs the stuff from Sejanus' locker so he can get that back to his family. The next morning he has a tearful goodbye with his bunkmates and gets on the hovercraft to District 2. Only for the hovercraft to eventually land and then an attendant come on board and say, "Welcome to the capital." He's like, "No, I'm supposed to go to District 2. And they're like, "No, trust me, you're supposed to be here." He hops into the back of a peacekeeper truck now. He's kind of panicking because he doesn't know why he's in the capital. He's wondering if this has something to do with the murders. He doesn't know. But then he's dropped off at the Citadel, where he's told he's expected in the lab. He's hoping that maybe he'll talk to Dr. K about the jabberjays and stuff, but no, he is greeted by Dr. Gall. And they resume their lessons once again, with her revealing that she's so happy that he continued his studies in District 12. And asks him once again what he thinks about the Hunger Games and if he would change his answer now. He tells her that he would like to elaborate on it now. He knows that they're not just to punish the districts. They're part of the eternal war. Each Hunger Games is their own battle that they can completely control, instead of waging an actual war that could get out of control. Then she asks him if he determined who they are, and he tells her they are creatures that need the capital to survive. He goes on to tell her that the Hunger Games are pointless though because people in the districts don't have access to them. They don't see them every year. She agrees that that is definitely something they will have to fix in the future, but is glad most of the districts couldn't see them this year because it was a mess. They actually ended up erasing every trace of footage on these games, except for the private copies she keeps in a deep secret vault for herself. He is so relieved by this because he knows this means the capital will forget completely about Lucy Gray in a little bit. Nobody in the districts really know her. District 12 doesn't even accept her as their own. So goodbye Lucy Gray because they hardly knew you is what he's thinking. Dr. Gall does go on to say that it wasn't a complete waste because they will be bringing back Flickerman for the next game. And obviously the betting will return. He also adds in that they need to make viewing mandatory somehow because in District 12 most of them just spend their days drinking to forget about the world. And they need them to remember the horrors of the war. She just chuckles and says, "Oh, it sounds like you learned a lot this summer." He's looking for some clarification on this, and she's like, "Hey, I just thought you would lounge around the capital this summer if I didn't send you somewhere, so I figured you could have a nice little summer vacation and learn some stuff being a peacekeeper in District 12. I mean, you really thought I would invest all this time in you only to make you a peacekeeper? No, I like you." He still doesn't fully understand, so she explains that she has ordered him an honorable discharge and he will now be studying under her at the university. And classes start Thursday. And just like that, we're in the epilogue now, where we're in October, halfway through their fall semester. At this time, he is working really closely with Dr. Gall's team in figuring out ways to get the district more invested in the Hunger Games. They come up with a plan that the district that the victor is from will get food sent to them, they'll get free food, all that good stuff, as well as the victor's village and quite a bit of money for the winner of the games. This way, they're hopeful that they'll even get some volunteers from some of the better districts. We also learn that the Plinths have fully taken him in, even though he's the guy that killed their son, but they don't know that. He's basically their son now, because Ma needed somebody to take care of, and Strabo over here, he needed somebody to carry on the family name. Well, he's not actually taking their name. They can't really legally adopt him. He's already 18, or basically already 18, so it would just be odd, but he needs somebody to carry on his legacy. Tonight, they're actually throwing a small little dinner party in honor of Sejanus because it would have been his 19th birthday. Snow's plan for tonight is to give the box of Sejanus' belongings back to his parents at the dinner table, which I don't know why he hasn't done already, but sure, I guess this is a nice anniversary to do it on, I don't know. Anyways, before he does that, he wants to go see Dean Highbottom with this box as well. The first thing he asks Dean Highbottom for is his mother's compact bag, because it has quite a bit of sentimental value to him. And then he lets him know that he's going to be returning Sejanus' belongings to his parents tonight. And wasn't really sure what to do with these random possessions, like the diploma, some of the medicine bottles in there, and a couple other random things. Mainly he brought it all here because he knew Dean Highbottom wouldn't want a diploma from the academy with a rebel's name on it floating around in the world. Also, he didn't want to bring up bad memories with the pills that Sejanus was taking near the time of his death. Then he just casually slips the diploma out of its frame and puts a nice family photo in there for them. Dean Highbottom is shocked by this and is asking Snow if he grew a heart during his time in the districts, because Dean Highbottom doesn't feel like this is something he would have done in the past by taking the pills out of there so his parents weren't reminded about all the distress their child was in. He says, I didn't grow a heart in the districts, I grew it in the Hunger Games, and I guess I have you to thank for that since you're the one who created them. This is when it's revealed that half the credit for the Hunger Games goes to Snow's father. See, they were partnered up for this final assignment, and Snow's father got Dean Highbottom very drunk one night, and Highbottom threw out the ideas of the Hunger Games, and Snow's father just kept getting Dean Highbottom drunker and drunker, so he would elaborate on it more and turn the assignment in before Dean Highbottom could stop him because he knew it was an awful idea and he would never want anything like that to happen. And he still can't forgive him for doing that to him just to get some attention from Dr. Gall. Snow comments that his father is dead. He says, Dr. Gall isn't. The Hunger Games was just supposed to be a theoretical idea, but she made it a real thing and gave him full credit for him when he is disgusted by it. He truly thought the Hunger Games would die out fast, but they're already at year 10 and it just seems to be ramping up now. I don't think Dean Highbottom is the best character ever in this story, but I feel like he kind of has this Effie redemption arc almost. Like, he didn't truly want these Hunger Games to ever be a thing. They were just a crazy, crazy idea that was shared with a friend. But he didn't think they were a good idea. It was disgusting to him once he was fully aware of what he was saying. But they move on from this little conversation because Dean Highbottom is curious on how Lucy Gray reacted when Snow told her that he was leaving. He brushes this little comment off though and he's like, I gotta go, because he doesn't want to talk about Lucy Gray. All he knows about Lucy Gray right now is what he got in the letter from his old bunkmate, Smiley. Basically saying that she's completely disappeared from District 12 and their shows in the Hob have been outlawed because it was causing too many problems. But he's not completely heartless. He does still have some fond memories of her, but he doesn't care about her anymore and knows now if he is ever to marry anybody, he's going to marry somebody he hates. So there's no strings attached, so he's never vulnerable with them. Just so they can never manipulate him like Lucy Gray did. Apparently. I don't know what she did to manipulate him, but I guess she did. But he does know that when he is president one day of Panem, he will continue the Hunger Games, and people may call him a tyrant or say that he rules with an iron fist, but at least the people of Panem will be safe. And on his walk home, he passes old Pluribus Bell's club, and he thinks about how somebody can get rat poison so easily from basically anywhere. And it really wasn't that tricky to get it into those morphling bottles that he just gave to Dean Highbottom, who has a morphling addiction. So now he's just left to think about the look on Dean Highbottom's face when he drinks that morphling and realizes what Snow has done to him. And he just hopes that he realizes what all of Panem will realize one day, that Snow lands on top. This right here is Snow's very first poisoning. If you don't already know, he poisoned basically anybody who would fight him on stuff in the capital, and that was one of the many things that Finnick revealed during the third book. And that's also one of the reasons he was wearing the roses all the time, was to cover up the scent of blood, because every once in a while he would have to take some of that poison and it caused his mouth to bleed. And just like that, we've made it to the end of this book. We are free from this guy's brain. Free, I tell you, free. I truly don't know if I will ever read this book again, because even though it is so well done, this guy pisses me off far too much. But I did have so much fun doing this recap. It was really cathartic to rant about President Snow for basically like a few hours nonstop. Loved it. Highly recommend. Very therapeutic. If there's a therapist out there, you should try this for your clients that like the Hunger Games. I think it'll help them a lot. Anyways, yeah, and the ending of this book, we have no clue what happened to Lucy Gray. Her story is a mystery, just like her poem was. Overall, this is a wonderful book, beautiful story. Just being in the villain's head for 500-ish pages is a lot to ask of anybody. It's so well done. If you haven't read the book, I would highly recommend it. There's so much good stuff in it that I just can't squeeze in the recap. And then if you have read the book and watched the movies, you know that the Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snake movie is the movie they take the most creative liberties with, and I feel like it kind of works. I don't know why. They end the games early in the movie. Like, when the snakes come out, that's the end of the games there. I don't know why they decided that. I would honestly love to sit down with that team and be like, why'd you do that? But I'm never gonna get that chance, so that's okay. But anyways, with all that being said, I am starving right now and I feel a little dizzy. So I need to go sit down, get some food, and I'm gonna chill out, and I hope y'all had a wonderful day. And if you are also needing lunch, go eat some lunch, dinner, whatever, go get some food in your bodies, take care of yourselves. Have an amazing, amazing time, and I will see you for the next recap or whatever video I post before then. I hope y'all have a wonderful day. And if you want to, you can like, comment, subscribe. It really does help a girl out. But besides that, bye y'all, and bye-bye President Snow. I never want to see that man's face again.
I didn't mean to hit record, but I did. So here we are. Yeah, we got a lot to go through.
It is fall, and I'm still sweating in this room. And this right here is when Dr. Gall lays down the doll. Then they start talking about the project he has to do, about writing about stuff he loved during the ward? The psych ward. They watch us sojourn. Cars. Serious, okay. They... No, this is serious. So not. I'm trying to talk about the James sprinkling the breadcrumbs over. Oh, this is why I don't film things at medical. Okay. Or I locked it. Okay. They watch us the Janus flip over. They